Can I welcome you to this meeting of the London Assembly and the Mayor. The London Assembly is the voice of London, composed of 25 members elected at the same time as the Mayor in order to hold him to account, scrutinise his policies and investigate matters of importance to Londoners. Can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the gallery and those watching on the webcast. This is a Mayor's Question Time meeting of the Assembly, which means that all members are invited to attend and ask questions of the Mayor. In case of an emergency and any need to exit the building, guests seated in the public gallery should follow security staff and Assembly members should follow the meeting clerk. Members are reminded that any electronic devices should not be placed in front of microphones and which must be turned on to speak and turned off once finished. Now can I ask the clerk to confirm any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for absence today from Assembly members Baker, Desai and Moema, and we have Assembly member Cooper online.
Okay, and we also have a number of members, I understand, who have given notice that they need to leave the meeting slightly earlier than the finishing time. Now, since we last met at the extraordinary plenary to question the Met representatives about police front counter plans, the Environment Committee have visited Epping Forest to understand the work being done to preserve the ancient tree species in a changing climate. The committee has also visited Biggin Hill Airport to hear about their work in relation to environmental sustainability. The Housing Committee wrote to the Mayor with the findings of his investigations into accessible housing in London. The Economy, Culture and Skills Committee spoke with organisations about the challenges and opportunities of hiring ex-offenders. The Transport Committee wrote to TfL and to the BTP, which I presume is the British Transport Police, about fare evasions, and the Police and Crime Committee met to understand how the Met's operations in schools may be affected by cuts to the Safer School officers. This week, the Planning and Regeneration Committee held a meeting of the resilience of London's energy grid. The Housing Committee asked the Deputy Mayor for housing about delivery of affordable homes in London, and the Health Committee began its investigation into weight loss medication. And finally, the GLA Oversight Committee discussed mayoral mandates and delivery plans, as well as the GLA Workforce Report. Today, I believe, is Emergency Services Day, also known as the 999 Day. This was recognised on Tuesday, it's not today. It's a national day that was across the UK supporting HM and the King, HRH, the Prince of Wales, and the Prime Minister and First Ministers of Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. The 999 Day was your chance to support the heroic men and women of the NHS and emergency services. It promotes our 99 heroes who have served, promotes careers and volunteer opportunities across emergency services, and promotes using emergency services responsibly. Educates the public on essential life-saving skills, promotes emergency services charities and their work that they do, and promote campaigns being run by frontline services. Of course, this is a day that we can prepare for in the future, is new to our civic calendar and is one that we would all wish to support around this table along with the Mayor of London. I know all Assembly members will join with me in recognising the importance of this day. And then lastly, on behalf of the Assembly, I would like to congratulate Assembly Member Polanski, who has been elected to the Green Party. Now, of course, we can't wish you good luck in the job, because politically we would like to see you fall on your face. But no, you know. But we really wish you well in the role, in the sense personally for you. And it's important to recognise the number of Assembly members who've taken on other roles or left the Assembly, who have given great public service. to London and to our country on a national scene. So well done. Congratulations. Let's get on with our business today. Declarations of interest. Can I ask the Assembly to note the interest that's set out in item 2? Do Assembly members have any other disclosable pecuniary interests which relate to items on the agenda for today's meeting, or any other relevant interest, including any declarations in relation to gifts, hospitality, which are not reflected in the authority's register and gift and hospitalities?
Assembly Member Prince.
I would have to declare that I use Gallows Corner, but I can't at the moment.
Thank you for that, but not appropriate. Any others? Item 3, minutes. Can I ask the Assembly to confirm the minutes of the London Assembly plenary meeting held on the 5th of June, 3rd of July, 6th of August 2025, and the London Assembly Mayor's Question Time meeting on the 11th of July to be signed as me as a correct record? Okay, we now move on to the Mayor's report. Can I ask the Assembly to formally receive the Mayor's report covering the period from the 28th of June to the 28th of August 2025. The Mayor will now provide an oral update of up to 5 minutes in length on matters occurring since the publication of his report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I echo your congratulations to Zach Balansky on being elected leader of the Green Party. It was a joy to see him having so much fun as well during the campaign, which I think what politics should be about, debating serious issues, raising important points, having fun and enjoying yourself at the same time. It's a lesson we can all learn from. I've been asked to provide a number of urgent oral updates on issues that I may otherwise have covered in my opening statement, so I'll go straight to those now, starting with the current strike action. I share the frustration felt by everyone whose journeys have been disrupted this week, and I want to thank Londoners for their patience and resilience. I know how hard it's been, especially for those trying to reach hospital appointments, get their children to school, or simply get to work without the option to work from home. That's why I'm urging the RMT and TfL to return to the negotiating table. TfL has worked hard to deliver as much service as possible to keep London moving, and I'm pleased that it's been able to operate rail and tram services and shuttle services on some tube lines. The second question, oral update, is in relation to the arrest of Graham Linehan. It's from Assembly Hall. The police have a duty to investigate reports of a crime. The extent of specific investigations and what actions are taken are solely operational matters for the Met. It's widely known most police officers at Heathrow Airport are armed for reasons we can all understand. I understand Mr Linehan was arrested and then bailed pending further investigation. I'm aware that concerns have been raised around the guidance to police officers on investigating online allegations related to the Public Order Act of 1986. I agree with the Commissioner that further clarity on the law and how it's enforced in these instances could be helpful. And the final oral update is from Assemblymember Garbutt in relation to Palestine action. The Commission and I meet regularly to discuss public confidence and satisfaction levels with the Met, and we regularly discuss protests as part of these conversations. Similarly, MOPAC officials meet with the Met leaders weekly and are given operational updates on upcoming and recent events, which, given our role as the capital city, regularly include protests. The policing of protests is rightly always an operational matter for the Met. Palestine Action is now a prescribed group, a decision passed by Parliament. Therefore, the Met must apply the law as it stands without fear or favour. I deeply sympathise with those who want to protest about what's happening in Gaza, and this does not affect lawful protest by other groups campaigning on this issue. One of the great things about our democracy is our strong, independent justice system. I understand there is an ongoing legal challenge against the prescription of Palestine Action. While the outcome of this challenge is awaiting resolution, the Met is required to apply the law as it currently stands.
Okay, I've seen two Assembly members that wish to come in on this occasion. So it's Assembly Member Prince, followed by Assembly Member Polanski and Assembly Member Garbutt. Oh, and Assembly Member Roberts. Thank you. And Hall. Sorry, and Hall. It's fine.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Hope you had a smooth ride in today. What I'd like to know, Mr Mayor, you said when you became Mayor you were going to be the Mayor of zero strikes. I think we've passed that point. You also said you were going to roll up your sleeves and sit down with the unions, which I thought was very laudable. Can you tell me, what have you done, Mr Mayor, prior to this strike and during the strike in relation to meeting with people of influence to try and avert this strike, please?
Well, the member will be aware or should be aware, that the TfL negotiating team met with RMT on 4 occasions prior to the strikes commencing and made themselves available over the course of the weekend as well. He'll also be aware that he's on record as criticising me when I intervene in strike action. I think the words he uses is ill-judged for the Mayor to personally intervene. I'm slightly confused. Is he criticising the Mayor for not personally intervening?
I'm just wondering whether you've, while it's taken you 9 years to take my advice. And I'm flattered, of course, that you actually started to listen. I appreciate that. Do you think, Mr Mayor, that when you threw £30 million at the unions last time, that you should have maybe put in some conditions on that, or do you think that was a good use of public money?
I don't apologise at all when inflation reaches record levels because of Liz Truss's mini-budget. Supporting the Met Police Service to address pay issues, supporting the London Fire Brigade to address pay issues, and supporting TfL to address pay issues. Because of inflation reaching record levels, it wasn't possible for the Met Police Service, the London Fire Brigade or Transport for London to meet the pay that would have kept up with the inflation levels. So we stepped in on all 3 of those organisations, and I don't apologise for 1 second for supporting firefighters, police officers and transport workers during a cost of living crisis exacerbated by Liz Truss's mini-budget and high inflation.
So what's different this time, Mr Mayor? I mean, why have you now decided to take the advice I gave you 9 years ago and not intervene? Why are you not rolling up your sleeves anymore?
Well, I'm surprised that members haven't noticed that we don't currently have a crisis caused by a mini-budget or exceptional levels of inflation caused by incompetence from the Prime Minister. What we've seen is a situation where skilled negotiators from TfL are talking to RMT up until the strikes began, and I'm confident those talks will resume once the strikes are over. Look, these strikes are bad for London. They're bad for, as I said in my answer, those that can't reach hospital appointments. They're bad for those parents who can't drop their children off at school. They're bad for those who can't reach places of work because they haven't got the luxury, I use the word luxury deliberately, of being able to work from home. And they're bad for our businesses, hospitality and so forth. That's why it's really important for RMT and TfL to negotiate differences rather than strike action. Strikes are ultimately a sign of failure. That's why it's important to resolve these.
Well, I'm glad you recognise your failure. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, so take Assembly Member Garbett, then followed by Polanski. Sorry, I took it wrong.
Morning. So just specifically about the action that was taken over the weekend. So we saw the same action with the same people with the similar placards and T-shirts in Edinburgh, Totnes and Kendal, and nowhere near the same level of arrest. So I just wondered where the push in London's coming from, whether that's the Home Office, you or the Commissioner.
No, I can't speak for the Home Office. I'd be surprised if politicians got involved in encouraging the police to act in a certain way, because that'd be wrong. That's one of the reasons why we should respect the fact that police have operational independence. Just imagine a situation where I could use my personal prejudices to tell the police what to do and not to do. So I'd be surprised if the Home Office did that as well. We certainly didn't from City Hall. I didn't from City Hall.
OK, thank you.
Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for your gracious and kind words. It's really appreciated. Also to you, Chair, and the whole Assembly, I only expect this kind of civility to break out for 10 minutes, but it was very nice while it existed. Much more seriously, on Tuesday evening, I attended a protest at Downing Street. This is in relation to Palestine Action and the arrival and the welcoming of President Isaac Herzog. Many of us in that crowd and many Londoners felt like he shouldn't receive handshakes, but actually should receive handcuffs. This is a man who said that there's no innocent civilians in Gaza, a man who signs bombs that are killing innocent people. As Mayor of London, using your platform, what would you want to say to those Londoners who are very concerned about the ongoing genocide that's being live streamed to our phones?
One of the things that I think is great about our city is the ability to participate in democracy, not just voting or join a political party, but also protest. And I think Londoners and those from across the country have been speaking quite loudly since October 2023. Their concerns are what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the West Bank, but also actions, from Prime Minister Netanyahu that have led to 20,000 children being killed, some of them now starving to death. The famine in Gaza is man-made, caused as a direct consequence of the policies of Netanyahu's government. And it's incredibly important that if the president is here, and he is, that our government makes clear to him our views on what's happening in Gaza and indeed in the West Bank as well. We talk about a two-state solution. The way things currently stand, it's looking like the state of Palestine is no longer viable.
I noticed that, and I agree with much of what you said. You deliberately didn't use the word genocide. Do you recognise the International Court of Justice as the highest authority in court in the world that is saying this is a genocide?
I think it's really important, particularly when you're a leader of a political party, not to mislead. That's not what the court said. They said plausible genocide. And I think since the interim judgment of plausible genocide, things have got worse, not better. And that's why it's incredibly important for the court to look again at the evidence. And as I said, it's got worse, not better since then.
It's also important as the leader of a political party to notice when someone's going down the line of principles. So if it's a plausible genocide and we have the president of the country in this country who is committing a plausible genocide, should he be arrested?
I think the Prime Minister is the person where there's been a discussion about arrests of the Prime Minister. He'll be aware that the President of Israel is a ceremonial position rather than the Prime Minister of Israel. There's a moot discussion about whether if the Prime Minister of Israel was to come to the UK, he could be arrested. But as far as I understand it, I've not checked the law recently, the President is a ceremonial position in Israel.
The International Court of Justice have cited statements made by Herzog as plausible evidence of Israel's genocidal intent. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's what the judgment says. They were talking about Israel rather than the president of Israel, and he'll be well aware in terms of the way the government in Israel works. It's the prime minister who has the power rather than the president.
Why are you protecting the president?
I mean, this is what brings politics into Babylon. We all know the member wants a clip for his social media, which is great bait and provides clicks. These are serious issues. And the sort of debating points he's trying to make doesn't address the core of this issue, which is every day Palestinians are dying, a combination of the actions of the IDF and starvation, and that's where our attention should be focused.
The issue couldn't be more serious, and social media is a means to communicate with people who are really concerned that the Mayor of London seems to be protecting a Prime Minister that isn't arresting the President of Israel.
Well, here we go again. The peroration comes, and that was the peroration, by the way, where the member is using Mayor's question time to raise points he wants to raise as the leader of the Green Party. And I suspect what he's trying to do soon is to get a seat so he can be elected to Parliament to raise those points. I'm quite clear. What's really important is that we have a right to protest in this country. Londoners and those across the country should utilise that right and make their voices heard loud and clear. What's happening in Gaza and the West Bank is outrageous. It is preventable. And I'm hoping the British government uses what little influence it has over Israel to get them to stop this. We do know that the country with the biggest influence over Israel is the United States of America. And I'm hoping when Prime Minister Keir Starmer meets with President Trump next week, he makes clear to President Trump that he should be using the influence he has to stop Israel doing what it's doing in both Gaza and the West Bank.
I do think you're cheapening the discourse that we're having here, because this isn't about making cheap political points. It's about standing up for the Palestinians, and I hope as the Mayor of London you would also stand up for the communities who are really concerned about it.
Well, I think what we're seeing is an example of the Greens trying to use the fora of Mayor's question time to raise really important issues in a trivial way. It is really important that action is taken to stop what's happening in Gaza, to stop what's happening in the occupied territories of the West Bank. It's really important. We condemn unequivocally the actions of Israel when it comes to bombing Doha. It's really important that the British government uses its influence in relation to where it can. And we know, frankly speaking, there's been very little influence over the government of Israel and its policies since October 2023. But we do know that the United States of America has influence over Israel, and I'm hoping the British government uses the opportunity next week provided by the visit of President Trump to put pressure on President Trump to use his influence as the closest ally to the State of Israel.
6 minutes of words and the Mayor won't acknowledge it's a genocide. Thank you, Chair.
That was the soundbite. That was what the soundbite. That's what was been after for the last 6 minutes. That's sixth form politics in Mayor's question time.
Okay, I didn't intervene there because I understand the topic is important to many people and many Londoners. But we were straying into internationals. The Mayor's not responsible for the international policy of the government, but he did answer the question. So I'm just pointing that out to members, the fine lines that we are working within there. But I thought it was an important exchange. That's why I allowed it to carry on. Now, let's move on. I think it's, where am I on my list? Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Does MOPAC have an indicative assessment of the cost to the Met of policing the protests in support of Palestine action, as well as the upcoming protests which are happening this weekend?
Yeah, the Commissioner's worked on that. The Commissioner's written to, I think, the Assembly as well, but partners in London to let them know about some of the pressure on the Met Police Service in the month of September, including the state visit and so forth. I've not got that to hand. I can send him the letter if he's not received it. That sets out the impact on policing in London.
Okay. And are you pressing the government for additional financial support to assist with this policing?
Yeah, good question. So there's two things we're doing in relation to this. Yes is the answer, but there are two routes in relation to doing that. One is the national and international capital cities grant. He'll be aware the increase we got last year, still not enough, still a big shortfall. Secondly is the way the special grant route works is not really fair because the threshold you've got to reach before you receive a special grant is a percentage of total budget and so forth. And we think that leads to problems in relation to our eligibility for receiving special grants. So on both those routes, we're directly appealing to the government for additional resources. And one of the reasons why the Commissioner wrote to partners across London was just let them know this is just a typical month for us, September. These are some of the pressures we're facing.
Thank you. Just one further question on Palestine action. You're a human rights lawyer in a former life. Is the government wrong to be ordering the arrest of pensioners simply for holding up placards?
Look, I've got a huge sympathy for those protesting about what's happening in Gaza and trying to bring that to the attention of people in positions of power and influence in this country and overseas. I've not seen the evidence the Home Secretary saw when she made the decision to prescribe Palestine action. Thankfully, we've got a process in this country of checks and balances, so that decision can be checked by judges in the High Court and then subsequently Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. In the meantime, it is the law. This group, whether we agree with it or not, has been prescribed. And it's not for the police to decide whether they support the law or not. What they've got to do is enforce the law. We can't pick and choose, I'm afraid, which laws to follow, which laws not to follow. There are some laws that none of us like, but we've got to follow them.
Okay. Thank you.
Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about the tweets. With a £260 million black hole, Mr Mayor, in the Met's budget, we are losing front counters, which many of us are not happy about. We're losing officers in schools. We're losing horse units. We're losing the police from the royal parks. And there are many other areas. But apparently we have got enough resource for 5 armed officers to arrest and detain a comedian in custody. So have you discussed this with the Commissioner?
Yeah, one of the reasons why the Commissioner has written to the government, and he's spoken publicly about this in relation to, and I support him this, clarity in relation to the guidance that supports the Public Order Act to do with online words, is because of the issue of resources and triage. There's a separate issue about freedom of expression, which we can talk about if she wants to. But there is an issue about, with limited resources, pressures on police time, on when it comes to the exercise of discretion. The concern the Commissioner has is officers are damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they don't take action, they're criticised. If they do take action, in addition to the impact on resources, they're criticised as well. That's why clarity, I think, would help everyone.
Yeah, well, I agree with the damned if they do and damned if they don't, but we have to look at the situation here. While Mr Linehan's tweets were investigated, there are scores of cases will have been dropped, leads not pursued, criminals not caught. Of these 78,000 crimes reported in August, the positive outcome rate was less than 13%. That's disgraceful. Of the 25,000 thefts reported last month, just 1,500 victims got a result. So there are times when the police will do things and won't do things. It's a case of where, choice. So are policing tweets more important then than solving some of these crimes like thefts, burglaries and sexual assaults?
Well, look, for the avoidance, I don't criticise Graham Linehan for thefts, assaults and the impact on those crimes on the victims. What's clear is the police have, got to triage and ration the resources they have. And one of the reasons why, by the way, it wasn't just the Commissioner, a number of others in National Police and also joined him in writing the letter to the Home Office to seek clarity in relation to the issue of exercise of discretion, but also in relation to triage as well.
They exercise discretion when they don't go after phone criminals. They exercise discretion all over the place. But the minute somebody seems to be offended, then they jump to action. And nobody's more supportive of the police than I am, and my colleagues will guarantee that is the case. But this is getting ridiculous. This is nothing but an affront on free speech. And if we're discussing freedom of speech, last month you published a press release suggesting that those protesting peacefully outside migrant hotels are extremists and are committing hate crimes. Do you think they are?
Well, firstly, it's great to see that the Conservative Party now supports the European Convention of Human Rights and Article 10, which is freedom of expression. And let's be frank, it's because we're signatories to the European Convention of Human Rights that supranational international law protects the right that she wants to exercise in terms of expressing the views she has. And the whole point about freedom of expression is sometimes people express views that you disagree with. That's the joy of freedom of expression, and that's one of the reasons why I'm passionate about staying signatories to the European Convention, because it's really important that we continue to have freedom of expression.
Well, you didn't answer my question, but then that's something I expect. Do you believe in free speech, Mr. Mayor?
As we heard, as a former human rights lawyer, I'm quite passionate about not just Article 10, freedom of expression, not just Article 8, the right to privacy and family life, not just Article 6, the right to a fair trial, not just Article 2, the right to life, or Article 3,
okay.
the right not to suffer inhumane and degrading treatment.
Yeah, thanks very much. But do you think it's okay for us to be offended?
Absolutely. One of the joys of a democracy is the right to offend.
One of my joys is being able to offend you. So we're in agreement, Mr. Mayor. For once in our lives, we are in agreement.
What's important you don't do is incite hatred or incite violence. What's important is you understand that the right to offend is one thing, and we should all be able to offend. And I love satire. I love humour. I love mocking people. And she's been the receiving end of that for the last 9-10 years.
She has indeed, and we spar, Mr. Mayor. Can I go back to the question I asked you, which you conveniently ignored again, about you speaking about the people protesting peacefully outside migrant hotels? You called them extremists and they're committing hate crimes. Do you think people demonstrating outside hotels are actually extremists and that they're committing hate crimes?
I've made quite clear. I think people should be allowed to protest. There's nothing wrong in protesting as long as it's lawful, peaceful and safe.
So the press release you put out was not along those lines. So perhaps you should be more careful with the words that you use. Because after all, we have seen the dreadful killing of Charlie Kirk yesterday, which shocked everybody, I imagine, from all sides. And he absolutely wanted to express that we need to have freedom of speech, and we do. And life is getting more and more dangerous. You constantly calling us far right, which is what you did during the mayoralty, which is what you've done before. That doesn't help the situation. Doesn't help it at all.
Well, firstly, as you've mentioned, the awful murder of Charlie Kirk is deeply shocking, and I'm sure our thoughts are with his family and many friends. As I said, one of the joys of democracy in America is a great democracy, is the right to offend and raise issues that people might find difficult. You can never justify political violence. We've seen politicians from the left and right, including a dear friend of mine, being murdered by extremists, and you see also those who've been killed on the right, including Mr. Kirk. It is really important that we're able to have discourse with civility where possible. We will disagree often That's the joy of a democracy. Yeah, right. What nobody should be doing is condoning violence, and I'm quite clear. People should be allowed to protest, and if people aren't allowed to protest, peacefully, safely, and lawfully, they'll resort to violence. That's why it's really important to allow a space for people to protest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assembly Members and the Mayor. Let's now move to questions in priority order. People, each group is allocated an amount of time to ask their questions that is proportionate to their size. The first question is titled Police Station Front Counter Closures from Assembly Member Ahmed.
Thank you for your question. Through the public consultation on the new police and crime plan, it was made clear that what matters most to Londoners is visible neighbourhood policing that serves communities. I've invested more in the Met Police Service than any previous mayor by a huge margin, increasing City Hall's investment in policing from 19% of the Met's total budget to 25%, I beg your pardon. My budget as mayor this year included a record £1.16 billion annual investment in the police, which is helping to protect neighbourhood policing in London's communities. However, in the face of devastating cuts to policing by the previous government, which saw £1.1 billion in funding cuts, around a third of its core funding, the Met still faces a stark financial situation. This has meant that the Met is having to make a number of tough choices and efficiencies to deliver a balanced budget, whilst prioritising and protecting neighbourhood policing, response and public protection. This will ensure the Met is tackling neighbourhood crime and making our town centres safer, with a strong focus on driving down violence and making sure the most vulnerable people are protected. Ultimately, any changes to the number of police front counters or their opening times is, of course, ultimately an operational decision for the Met to take, based on resources, funding and public demand for services. The Assembly Chair will be aware that the previous mayor closed more than 80 front counters and stripped back neighbourhood policing, when the Met's financial position was much healthier and City Hall investment much less. The Met are currently engaging with a range of stakeholders in the proposals and any impacted groups as part of the Equality Impact Assessment. The Met has outlined that with the evolution of technology, behavioural patterns have shifted. 95% of crime is now reported via phone, online or directly to officers in the community. The Met's also introduced and exploring a range of measures to ensure everyone can access their services. This includes video appointments, which have been successfully used by over 21,000 victims in London, with 97% choosing this method over in-person appointments with a police officer. I'm clear that key partners across London, especially those that work closely with the Met, should be liaising with their borough commander with regards to the proposals in the local area.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning. And I do hope that you and your family had a good summer. That it feels like a very long way away. Mr Mayor, how will you ensure that Londoners are fully aware of the implications of the front counter closures in their area? So,
the good news and bad news is, very few Londoners use the front counters. That's just a fact. The most recent analysis, I think some front counters were used, 3, 4, maybe 5 times a day for crimes being reported. Not at all during the course of the night. And it's really important to give them the reassurance, though, that the police will be there when they are needed. So the police are doing lots of work in relation to outgoing consultation, speaking to London partners across the city. Borough commanders are working with respective council leaders, councillors and members of Parliament. And, of course, there's a quality impact assessment, which means the police will talk to stakeholder groups but other Londoners to ensure they know what's planned, but also they can affect then what's been planned in terms of whether front counter hours are widened, reduced or kept open 24 hours a day.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are you concerned about the way that these plans were announced to the public?
Yeah, I think it wasn't intentional from the police. What the police are trying to do is consult with their staff, make sure they have the best version of the plans when it was in a previous iteration. And then these things, went out from inside the police service to outside the police service, and the public were not reasonably concerned because they'd heard nothing about this. It wasn't announced. And so, again, the police, there's a conundrum here. Do they try and improve provisional plans they have by working with others inside the police service? And you've got to remember that these are sometimes jobs being affected, and they've got to consult those affected potentially and stuff. But on the other hand, the other side of the conundrum is they don't want to inadvertently alarm the public about plans that haven't been finalised and stuff. So, look, on reflection, I think even the police would accept in this case things could have been handled differently, and I apologise for that.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Chair. Mr Mayor, do you want to bring your microphone just a little bit closer to you? I think it might be easiest for us to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Assembly Member Roberts.
Would the Mayor like to answer as well?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Last year you made a promise in your manifesto to keep a police front counter open 24/7 in every London borough. Now you're claiming it's an operational decision on the part of the Met. If it's an operational decision, why did you make this promise, knowing it wasn't in your power to deliver it?
Well, look, I mean, when the facts change, I change my mind. We've got to recognise the reality of the consequences of austerity, but also the fact there is a black hole in terms of what the Met Police would like to do in 25-26 and what they can afford to do in 25-26. But also, look, I could insist with the Commissioner that certain things happen, but when he explains to you the operational consequence of those things happen, I'll give him an example. The savings we made with front counters will lead to, roughly speaking, £7 million being saved, which equates to a certain number of police officers. The choice I have is to say to the Commissioner, look, because I made a promise in a manifesto, I want you to not have those police officers, but keep a police counter open 24 hours a day. And when he presents me the evidence, well, actually, no one's using these front counters. You're wasting resources, wasting police power. That police power we can use elsewhere. I think it'd be a fool to be dogmatic and not follow the evidence from the police service.
Were you not aware of the financial pressures on the Metropolitan Police when you made that manifesto commitment? You have been mayor for 8 years before that.
Yeah, that's the reason why the Police and Crime Plan doesn't have the same commitment in relation to 24-hour counters that the manifesto has. When I printed the manifesto, we've got to look at what we're doing instead of the front counters. So one of the things that I'm well aware of is most Londoners contact the police on phone. I'm also well aware that the response from the police on the phone in the past has been poor. That's why we invest in £2.5 million every year in the Met's Command and Control Centre. The response time has improved, which means that the level of service the public receive has improved as well, and the use of front counters is declining. So I made a pragmatic decision to listen to the advice of the police and pivot and switch that funding to police officers and an improved Command and Control Centre. Excuse me.
Thank you. One question which we would all be delighted to get an answer to is that we've asked the Deputy Mayor, we've asked various levels of the police, when exactly were you first made aware of this decision to axe front counters across London?
It was in the Tough Choices presentation the Commissioner did in November, December, during one of the iterations of the budget. So if you remember, there were lots of tough choices the Commissioner set out to fill the £260 million black hole. So there's what the Commissioner wants to do and what he can afford to do in the draft budgets and what tough choices he'd be forced to make. And front counters were one of the options in the tough choices. He'll be aware that we've managed to close that gap in relation to tough choices. For example, our investment meant we saved, I think, 930 officers from the tough choices. So some of the tough choices, as was set up by the Commissioner back in December, didn't materialise, some did.
Best part of a year you've known about this, but the Assembly only found out in July. Londoners only found out in July. The Police and Crime Committee found out in July.
I'm shocked that the Assembly weren't aware about the tough choices document because we discussed it.
We knew about the tough choices, not the police front counters, Mr. Mayor.
It was one of the options in the tough choices.
We weren't given that information.
Well, had the Assembly looked at some of the documentation, and not just the presented by the Commissioner to the Policing Board, but the evidence given to the various iterations of the budgets, the Commissioner himself talked about the tough choices he would have to make. They would have been aware this is one of the options. The good news is...
Were you not surprised, Mr. Mayor, that there was no public outcry from the Assembly members regarding this particular issue, given that apparently we knew all about it in November or December?
There are a number of options set out in the tough choices documentation from the Commissioner, and this is one of them. We've managed to close the gap in some of the other tough choices and take them away. Some of them we've not been able to take away. The good news with the front counters, though, is we've managed to increase the number of front counters from originally that was planned to close, and make sure some are open for daytime hours, some are open 24 hours a day, and in the work the police are undertaking with the quality impact assessment, there may be further changes as well before they make the decision later on this year.
Okay, two final questions, if I may. Firstly, could I ask whether you were briefed properly, as on the 28th of July of this year, you claimed to ITV London News that some front counters will stay open 24 hours a day. But some boroughs, frankly speaking, nobody uses the front counters after office hours. They'll stay open during office hours. Now, there's Twickenham Police Station, for example, is not going to stay open during office hours. Were you properly briefed?
Yes, so some front counters are saying open 24 hours. Some front counters will open during part of the day. Some front counters will close. I think the one that he's talking about, from the numbers I have, on average, 2 crimes reported every day. So that's money we could spend on improving the command and control centre. We could spend on police officers, or we could spend having a front counter that's not used.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I've got Assembly Member Georgiou, I've got Assembly Member Wilson, and I've got Assembly Member Best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I missed you. I hope you had a good summer. I didn't, because I missed you. Mr. Mayor, do you support the closure of Edmonton Police Station front counter?
I've not got the list, but I support the Commissioner in relation to the advice he gives in relation to operational decisions that he has taken because of the consequence of 14 years of austerity.
So to make clear, you support the closure of Edmonton Police Station front counter?
As I've said, I support the operational advice I received from the Commissioner, caused by 14 years of a third of the core budget of the Met Police Service being cut.
Right, OK. I'll remind you that you said that a new Labour government, you'd have the, I don't know, some nonsense phrase, wind at the sails of your back or something like that. But anyway, that's by the by. Did the current Deputy Prime Minister for Great Britain write to you to say that he did not support the closure of Tottenham front counter?
I lost track of who the Deputy Prime Minister is. I'm just trying to think who.
You and me both.
And so, I've not checked what the correspondence I've received in relation to front counters. What I do know is, on average, 4 crimes are reported every day at Edmonton front counter, and that's money we could spend elsewhere if that decision was taken to close the front counter. But I'm not aware, Chair, of the letters I've received in relation to this issue. But I can go and check and get in touch with him or let him know whether I received.
Could you let us know if the Prime Minister, who represents a seat in Camden, wrote to you arguing that you should not shut the front counter at Camden Police Station?
I think the point to make in relation to correspondence received is, of course, I'll share with colleagues any representations that are received. But, if we follow this line of argument, there should be, police boxes on all our roads because we've always had police boxes. But they weren't made because of innovation and technology. People realised the police officer didn't need a police box to reach the police station. They could use their radios. And further on,
Mr. Mayor, with the greatest respect, 50,000 crimes were reported last year at front counters. 50,000 crimes. And let's be honest, there are people that may not be able to access the phone, may not be able to navigate the internet, may not be able to navigate other avenues, possibly on social media, to contact the police. And let's be honest, it's predominantly older residents that not only use it to report crimes, but for other support-based services.
Chair, I'd have more sympathy with the points the member's making if he was loud and vocal when Boris Johnson closed more than 80 front counters during his tenure as mayor. Where were the Conservatives then, complaining about the points he's making now? And by the way, that was a time when the Met Police budgets were healthier. At the same time as closing front counters, he was stripping back neighbourhood police officers as well. Now, what we're doing is we've realised there is more people reporting crime through their phones, online, to police officers. Only 5% of crimes are reported at front counters, more than 90% over the phone, online, and to police officers. So if we improve those services, the £2.5 million investment in the Command and Control Centre, more neighbourhood police officers,
that wasn't the question.
That wasn't the question.
But
the quality of service received by Londoners is enhanced.
Mr. Mayor, how if going by your own logic, and you want to talk about austerity, how is it that Boris Johnson, when Mayor of London, managed to cut crime by 25% with less money than you have now? Give me a break. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it's not the case because since I've become mayor, homicides down by more than a quarter, violence with injury down by more than 26%, burglaries down, Those who are killed by guns are down. Of course,
I
in the
don't
last
know,
year,
Mr. Mayor, we're moving on because that's not what I asked. But anyway, thank you so much for your delightful contributions as always.
Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Policing by consent relies upon the police being rooted in the community, and I think these front counters and the buildings have a fundamental part to play in that. I've had more correspondence on this than any other issue since being elected to the Assembly last year, and I'm sure other members have had a similar volume of correspondence. But I think that the response to this issue, I think, shows in many ways exactly where some of your priorities really are. The fact that you're spending over £25 million over the next 3 years to decarbonise police buildings while shutting or slamming the front door in the faces of Londoners who want to access those buildings across our city. And this is at a time when concerns about crime are off the scale. Mr. Mayor, is London lawless?
So when he was a member of the Conservative Party, and the Mayor was Boris Johnson, he closed 341 buildings, Met Police buildings. I've got nowhere near closed anywhere near that. We have had to close 60 police buildings because of austerity. He mentions the word lawless. I mean, I don't understand why his party is always talking up Dubai and talking down London. I mean, look in the last 8 years, we've managed to reduce homicide, despite a population rising by more than 1 million, by more than 25%. Despite a population rising by more than 1 million, we've managed to reduce the number of young people with a knife by more than a quarter. We've managed to reduce burglary, managed to reduce the lethal barrel discharge. According to the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, you are less likely to be the victim of crime in London than the rest of England and Wales. Beg your pardon, victim of violence in London, and less likely the victim of violence with injury. He's always talking down London. According to independent research, you're less likely per capita to be the victim of homicide in London than New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Madrid, Barcelona, Paris, and other cities across the globe. Why is he always... I think it's the most
Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you've raised that point. I'm glad you've asked me why am I talking down London. I would utterly refute that. What I would argue, Mr. Mayor, is that you are running down London. We are the mobile phone capital theft of Europe. 116,000 mobile phones stolen on London streets last year. We have knife crime up 67% since you were elected as mayor. A rape reported every hour. Now, you can cherry-pick statistics, we can all cherry-pick statistics, but overall, across the whole range of crime since you were elected mayor in 2016, overall crime in London is up 21%, and we're seeing that at a time when, thanks to the decisions that you're making and the priorities that you're making, policing is in retreat. We're losing officers, we're losing police station front desks, we're losing control of our streets. That's why people are concerned about it. So that's why people are emailing me, and I'm sure they're emailing other Assembly members, and I'm sure they're emailing you as well. But you're just not hearing, you're just not listening.
Well, now it's my turn to answer the question, if you may. So if he's so passionate, as indeed I am, about addressing those crimes, they are serious crimes, surely he agrees with me, then rather spending money on bricks and mortar and a front counter that nobody uses, we should spend that money with limited resources on more police officers, on neighbourhood police officers, on improving the services Londoners do use. Londoners do pick up the phone and ring the police. That's why we're trying to improve response times by investing in command and control to make sure phones are answered quicker, whether it's 999 or 101. Surely if he cares about addressing those issues, he wants to support our town centre teams who work in this summer, have reduced homicides in our city to the lowest in years. Surely he would support the switch spending from buildings to town centre teams that have, over the last year alone, reduced personal theft and personal robbery, and a big part of that is mobile
personal
phones
theft
as well.
is off the scale, in not just year on year, but again across the whole time of your period as mayor. And yes, I would support looking at different priorities, but the £7 million that it would cost to keep these front desks open equates to just 0.5% of your consolidated climate budget. That's why I want a different priority. I want to keep Londoners safe rather than just trying to look good in front of your C40 mates.
So what the member is suggesting is that we instruct TfL to break the law and use money that TfL uses to negotiate electric buses, break the law, ultra-virus, switch that to the Met Police Service to pay for front counters. Firstly, it's breaking the law, nothing new to reform. But secondly, more importantly, we've got to recognise that actually one of the reasons why consolidating the Met Police's state is to make sure it's fit for purpose. Some of those buildings leak.
What's the point of being fit for purpose if people can't access it? Can I come?
Some of those buildings leak when it rains, and so look, I'm not going to apologise for improving the facilities our police officers have.
And that's nothing to do with decarbonisation. That's ordinary maintenance, isn't it? It's the decarbonisation point that I think is a waste of money, a wrong priority, and I would reallocate that into doing something useful with it. But it's extraordinary. We have record knife crime, record phone theft, theft from the person off the scale, shoplifting off the scale, and. But back to the original question of the front counters, which was raised. So at the meeting we had last month to discuss this, you were invited, but you didn't come. You sent your deputy to face the music rather than doing it yourself. So on that occasion, what did we have? We had silence from Sadiq. We heard an exchange earlier on to arrest a comedian for a joke. Again, you hide behind this operational independence. Can I finish this? You hide behind operational independence every single time. Every single time. So again, silence from Sadiq. And on the tube strikes, this week, on the tube strikes.
Okay, can we stop talking over each other? And you have got to give, if you're going to ask a question, give the time if you want to respond.
On the tube strikes, Mr. Mayor, all you've said is that TfL needs to get around the table. You are TfL. You are the chair of TfL. So why the silence? People look to you for leadership, and they are not getting it. You have silence from Sadiq yet again, yet again, and yet again.
Okay, you're now out of time. Let's move on to
Chair, don't I get a chance to respond? I forgot he ran out of time.
I think
badly managed time.
You've
almost like Susan Hall.
Actually, you've answered most of those points. Let's move on to Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's already been talk this morning of 50,000 crimes reported at police front desk. You yourself seem to be focusing on that. We know that doesn't even account for a fifth of visits to police stations. Do you have the statistics now on how many people actually visit the police stations you are looking to close?
So we do know that people sometimes come to police stations looking for directions. They sometimes come to the police station to report things lost. They sometimes come to police stations to report missing people. And that shouldn't be the function of trained police officers in a front counter. There are other ways to do those things. And that's one of the reasons why we've improved the Command and Control Centre to improve response times.
So we're talking about really important things like mental health breakdown, updates and report. No, if you can't answer the question, Chair, this is why people get annoyed with him. Because I've asked a question, you're the Chair, you know he's not answering the question.
I'm intervening.
Then intervene and ask the Mayor to answer the question.
Please be quiet. I'm intervening because you're not allowing the Mayor to finish.
Finish not answering the question. He is trivialising people visiting police stations to report crimes, to get updates on very serious crime, to report missing persons. He is trivialising why people use police stations. I've asked him a question. He is answering a different question. And, Chair, you wonder why members get frustrated.
I understand your frustration. But the fact is he hadn't finished his question for you to become more frustrated, to be honest, in that sense. Now, can I just say to you, let him finish, then come back and you get another go. Let's start the clock again.
And the Commissioner, I fully support the Commissioner, 18 months ago took a decision to withdraw from that police service doing as much work as they were doing with mental health issues. The right people to look after people who are mentally unwell are practitioners. And so I support the Met Police Service in withdrawing for some of the mental health work they were doing, because they were chaperoning for hours somebody who was unwell, spending hours and hours with mentally unwell people in A&E. And so I support them and the decision they took to do that.
Chair, did you even see a scent of an answer to the question I asked?
That's not for me to judge. It's for you
actually,
to go
it is
back.
As the chair. It is actually as the chair. When we ask a question as members of the Mayor, you should help direct him if he can't understand the question. The question is, how many people visit a police station every year?
Mayor, do you want to answer that question?
I've not got that to hand. I'm sure I can get somebody to write to the member to give her the answer.
I don't think you can get it to hand because I've been asking for over a month. We know that reports of crimes only count for a fifth of visits to the police station. You just said, the first thing you said in this meeting was visible neighbourhood policing is the most important thing to people. It is not just being safe, it is the perception of safety, and police bases do that. So if you don't even know how many people are visiting them, I don't know how you can close them.
Well, we're going to disagree on this because I think a building doesn't make me feel safe. Police officers being visible makes me feel safe. And if I can save money from a front counter not being used 24 hours a day and use that money to employ police officers, that's a better use of those resources, I would argue.
But you don't know how many people are using them. Do you not understand the fundamental principle of your saying that you're not protecting this building, but you can't tell us how many people are using the service?
Literally 2 minutes ago, I said I'd write to the member and let know the information.
Trying to close the police stations this month. This month. So what good is it to write to me? This is our only opportunity to talk about this. What good is it to write to me? That's information you should know. That's the position you should be defending and assuring us of. It's no good writing to me. You should know.
Well, look, the suggestion in the draft proposals from the police are, I think, 19 front counters being affected. More than 80 were closed down when the previous mayor was in the chair I'm sitting in. I'll make sure, of course, the quality assessment is done properly. But since then, we've had huge investment, not just in neighbourhood policing, not just in command and control centre, not just in the response times that people get when they ring up the phone or ring 999 or 101, but also in the online services that the Met Police Service provides. And for those that can't use online services or the telephone, there are more police officers in town centres, so people can access them as well.
Coming on to the cost, this is a proposal that's looking to save £7 million. That would equate to almost £500,000 being spent per for a front counter. Could you detail for me how a front counter racks up that £500,000 bill?
I'm sure we can write to the member to give her a breakdown of where the savings will come from.
That's
front
another
counters.
thing. You are looking to close these 17 police front counters. You should know why it is so expensive, and this should be the last port of call. We should be looking at how we make this a more cost-effective service. Is there anything else we can do? But you can't even tell me why it costs £500,000 to keep one of these front counters running.
There's an obvious reason why it costs money to have a front counter running, not just the staff employed, not just the overhead involved in relation to the building, the utilities and the facilities.
But you're not looking to close the buildings. The buildings will still be running. So it's not about the running of the building, unless actually you want to be honest with us and say we're going to be selling these police stations off too.
But unlike the previous mayor who sold off more than 350 buildings, we're not selling off anywhere near that number. There are some buildings that will continue to be used by the police, custody suites, CID and so forth. And they will have phones outside, video screens, so people can still contact the police who turn up to a police station. Very few turn up to a police station.
I think you're forgetting the question. You're not even answering the question. Just cut it. We'll just stop because we're asking about funds and he's talking about something completely different.
You're prolonging it. You'll make your point. We are getting some information, but let's try. Yeah, I do think. But let's try. Let's try and finish. Stop interrupting. Let's all stop interrupting each other and allow the meeting to process.
And some will be sold off. That's part of the state strategy which the police will be publishing later on this year.
You finished your questions? Thank you. OK. Chair, can I just say this? Some of that information that member has asked for is really urgently required. The Metropolitan Police should have that information, and if you could fast-track it or seek them to give it to us before any final decisions are taken, I think it would be welcomed around the table. It's part of the frustrations that members are expressing over this issue in terms of information around this proposal, along with some other of the Metropolitan Police proposals. So if you could do your best in terms of facilitating that action and share that information with all members, we'd be grateful. Thank you. I saw the nod. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you, Chair. There is the issue of the Mayor not answering questions, Chair, and whilst I know that this isn't, whilst I know this isn't for you to decide, the Mayor has got worse and worse. We put forward questions, we have opportunities once a month, and the Mayor just does not answer our questions. We are asking questions on behalf of Londoners, and we are entitled to proper answers. Now, sometimes we just ignore it. Other times, we get very, very frustrated by it because we spend a lot of time looking at the questions that are required by Londoners, by our inboxes, and we just don't get straight answers. You know, you can't avoid scrutiny all the time. I mean, that's why we've got a London Policing Board, because the people on it are chosen by the Mayor himself, and the police committee are just not getting the information. So this is why we're frustrated. Thank you for your time.
Let the Mayor respond to that particular point about the questions. Then I'm going to say something that I've always said before at previous meetings and has happened over the years, not just in this particular year. But
if I'm being asked a question by the Conservatives, I'll respond. I wouldn't respond otherwise. Is that a question for the Conservatives?
No, It wasn't. I was talking to you, Chair.
They don't care that much, do they? On the one hand, they claim to care, but not willing to use their time to ask the question.
Okay, so I've been very clear and very honest with the Assembly. I can't make the Mayor answer the question in a different way or even answer the question. And on occasions, he will choose to answer it in the way that he wants. Some of the members around the table use different tactics to elicit information or to expose that. As rightly, maybe some of the Tory colleagues have exposed that if they feel that their questions are not being answered. Keep interrupting the progress of the meeting. It's not helpful to anybody. And sometimes we are eager in terms of our scrutiny. We think we know the answer that we want, and we're there before even the Mayor has opened his mouth. Is not helpful. And look, you know, I don't want to tell members how to ask their questions, and I'm still learning, to be honest, after all the many years I've been here. But the question is that to get the best out of the session, you need to think carefully. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we would like some answers. I think on this particular issue, there is frustration from all around this table about the process and what has been provided to you and your colleagues from the Metropolitan Police Service in this proposal. And, you know, in some ways, we are still seeking information that we should have had some time ago. You this morning have introduced information that is completely new to the 25 Assembly members. Completely new. We weren't aware of it, as you will see from our faces, that you believe that we were aware of. And I believe that you've been told that, and it just wasn't the case. So let's get back into... Let's get back... Yep, thank you.
The reports that we had claimed that there was an option to reduce the opening hours of some front counters across London. That was all. Not close any of them. Closure was not mentioned at all. Simply reduce the opening hours of some front counters.
And not in defence of the Mayor, but in terms of information flows, Mr. Mayor, that's what I think you should have been told, and that clearly hasn't been told to you. So, in that sense, let's look. This issue isn't going to go away. We're going to have some exchanges, and clearly, people will continue with the question on this important subject. Let's move on with the rest of our business. Can we go back on the clock? And we are now moving on to...
Assemblymember Garbage.
Yes, Assemblymember Garbett, English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill.
Thanks for your question. While I don't have any powers to directly regulate private renting, I have been doing everything within my power to improve renting and the enforcement of renters' rights in London. There is no doubt that too many renters in London face high costs and poor conditions. That's why my online private renting tools and checkers support Londoners' renters to make more informed choices about who they rent from and hold their landlords to account. This includes sharing information on landlords who have been fined or prosecuted for a housing-related offence, identifying which homes need a property licence, and making it easy for Londoners to report a concern about a private landlord or property directly to the correct council enforcement team. These tools support councils to improve their enforcement work so that more rented homes are made safe and decent. I very much welcomed the measures set out in the English Devolution White Paper, which agreed to devolve selective licensing powers to London, giving councils new powers to regulate the private rented sector in consultation with City Hall. Selective licensing is one of the best tools councils have to improve conditions and standards in their local private rented sector. I've long been calling for this, and my team is already working with boroughs to give them additional support to develop and implement new schemes. The Renters' Rights Bill contains many of the measures I set out in my London model for tenancy reform in 2019, including ending Section 21, introducing open-ended tenancies, longer notice periods, and a landlord register, the PRS database, and reforming possession grounds. It will deliver much-needed security and stability for renters after years of delay by the previous government. With sufficient funding, it will enable boroughs to increase their enforcement work so that more of London's rented homes are safe and decent. It also contains measures to enable renters to challenge unfair rent hikes. On top of this, I welcome the government's continued commitment to empowering mayors through the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill. Working with the government, I have ambitious plans to boost London's growth potential through its measures and have been urging the government to go further still in London, with new powers to streamline the planning process and on the licensing of short-term lets. I look forward to working with the government and helping them change the experience of renting for Londoners.
Thank you. So we all know that we're well past the need, we need urgent action on renting in London. People face a prospect of 20-30% increase and maybe made homeless. Last year when we spoke after my rent commission, you said you'd be pushing the government for powers to cap rents, and you just said then that you don't have the powers, but the devolution bill includes provision for mayors to request powers from the government. So will you be requesting powers to cap rent increases?
Yeah, that's your question. So one of the things that I've been lobbying the government for up until getting this power is for them to devolve to different parts of the country the ability to have rent control. So, look, Greater Manchester may decide not to, right, for reasons that the may decide. That's hypothetical, by the way. I don't know what the decision is, but I would want to. And so we're going to carry on in relation to prior to the bill becoming an act of Parliament, lobbying for that. But she's right. The right to request is something that we find really interesting. The process is a bit clunky. I can make a request directly to MHGLG. More likely to get the right to request responded to if we can get agreement from all the metro mayors across the country. So we'll work through different tactics and strategy, but I can assure her this is one of the things at the top of my list to request from the government in terms of stuff that we should be getting devolved to from the centre outwards.
So capping rents would be on the top of your list for powers to get devolved?
One of the things is I've got a long list.
Yes. So what specific conversations have you had with government about that?
To devolve to regions like, because should we the experience in Edinburgh, the Scottish Government has got devolution of some of this stuff. I'm paraphrasing. Why can't we have what Edinburgh's got is the sort of context of the conversations we've had. I can understand, by the way, that for argument's sake, Burnley is different from Bermondsey. Right, so I'm not saying Burnley has rent control or rent caps, but what I'm saying is that by giving regions the ability to do so, we can decide if we want to do so or not. In London, clearly, I'd want to do so. So
how confident are you that you would be able to get that from those discussions?
Listen, I'm not breaching confidence. The government is not keen on this. We're going to carry on trying. There have been other examples where, much as the previous government, this current government's not been keen, we've managed to change their minds. And we're going to carry on, in terms of working with the government on things that are being devolved, which will really improve the rights of renters in London, the experience of Londoners, the conditions of the premises. So we're going to make sure we action that. At the same time, thinking about what more we can do to, address the fact, with the best in the world, in the short to medium term, we're not going to get the supply of housing to meet the needs of those renting privately.
So, and just in terms of the bill going through, there's currently an amendment tabled to give the Secretary of State powers to introduce rent caps, which you could then request. So this is a real opportunity to finally get those devolved. So I just wondered if you'd support that amendment publicly.
I'm not sure of any confidence in getting 326 MPs to support that amendment and stuff. So look, I'll use what little experience I have to try and make sure we can get what we can from the government using whatever tools are available. I think that amendment's not going to pass. But I do think
it might gather a bit of momentum if you put your support behind it, like you did with the welfare cuts.
Thanks for the advice. I'm always receptive to advice from friends or foe. Advice noted.
Yeah, if you'd consider supporting that, I think it'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Assembly Member Mathous.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mr Mayor. So you talked about the selective licensing scheme and the change that's going to come about through what the government is proposing, moving the power to sign off from the Secretary of State to yourself, which is very welcome. And those selective licensing schemes are making sure that we are raising the bar in terms of what quality of properties should look like across the capital, which is good to see. As part of the work that we did on the Oversight Committee, talking to other global cities about some of the challenges they had in terms of housing and renting in particular, and we've seen that actually this is the number one issue that Londoners want you to be able to deal with in terms of the survey that we conducted. I spoke to representatives from New York, and they talked about the challenges they had in terms of proliferation of Airbnb properties. Now, of course, one of the challenges we can see is that normal rented properties get flipped for more income and bypassing the selective licensing scheme by being turned into an Airbnb. Would you support the extension of the selective licensing scheme to include properties that come under Airbnbs?
Look, I thank him and the committee for the work they've been doing. So we've got experience of what happens in other cities in relation to. There are other companies as well as Airbnb. Let's not just pick on Airbnb. They're actually very good compared to some of the others. They're very good, full stop, by the way. Is not just in relation to the different selective licenses can make in terms of quality and condition of property, the experience of the tenant, and include the good landlords welcome it as well. but also some of the loopholes that exist in other cities as well. One of the reasons why deliberately my answer mentioned short-term lets is because he knows from his experience in Ealing Council, the difficulty in councils enforcing, inverted commas, the 90-day rule. And so what we want to do is to make that easier, more transparent, and that will avoid the abuse he's talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Assembly Member Boff.
Mr. Mayor, in your approach to private rents, will you be taking any advice from Jazz Athwell MP?
So it's really important to ensure that Parliament gives us the powers we want. My understanding is that there are lots of slum landlords that the Conservatives are responsible for. Lots of landlords in the Conservative Parliamentary Party, and their expertise is valued as well.
Are you saying that Jazz Athwell was a slum landlord, Mr. Mayor?
And their experiences, it will, I'm sure, be heard when the debates take part in Parliament.
Are you stating that Jazz Athwell was a slum landlord, Mr. Mayor? Because that's what you've just said.
I'm quite clear the Conservative Party has many, many landlords in the Parliamentary Party.
Do you just use the term slum landlord as a comparison? Are you saying Jazz Athwell is a slum landlord?
They will take part in the debate. They'll take part in the committee stage. They'll take part in the legislation passing. It's really important to recognise that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, will you be paying particular attention to how much affordable housing programme money has been used to build those homes that have been the hundreds of homes that have been fraudulently let by Barking and Dagenham Council?
Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure what the member's referring to.
The police investigation is currently underway because hundreds of homes have been fraudulently let that are the responsibility of Barking and Dagenham Council, and some of those homes may very well have been funded by the Affordable Housing Programme. Will you acquaint yourself with how much of the money of the Affordable Housing Programme has gone into fraudulently let properties?
Well, I'm sure the member will be aware that it would be unwise for me to comment on a live investigation.
I'm asking you to acquaint yourself with the figures.
Well, why don't we wait and see how the investigation goes before we start commenting on it?
So you're not going to do that? Thank you.
Let's move on to the next question, which is in the name of Assembly Member Prince, Gallows Corner.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank the member for his support on this matter over a number of years? The renewal of the aging Gallows Corner flyover is essential to ensuring the safety and reliability of the road network in Havering and indeed across East London. Gallows Corner flyover was originally built in the 1970s as a temporary structure, and ensuring that this asset is in good order is vital to keep our city moving. This important flyover now requires major strengthening to ensure it can continue to serve Londoners for generations to come. The speed and weight limits implemented in previous years have allowed the structure to continue operating safely, but a major refurbishment project is now taking place to avoid future disruptions to the road network. These essential works will enable larger vehicles to use the flyover again. TfL, working with its contractor Congestion, is pressing ahead to complete the work as quickly and safely as possible. To avoid the inconvenience of further disruptive closures in future, TfL has been coordinating with Essex and Suffolk Water, who are replacing an Asian water main at the same time as the work on the flyover. There's been good progress made on the flyover itself, with the final span removed in early August. But unforeseen problems with the condition of the ground around the water main have unfortunately delayed that part of the works, and this in turn has affected the overall timeline. The project followed standard engineering practice, but unfortunately with projects like this there can be issues that only become clear once work takes place on site. Some elements of the work both on the water main and on the flyover will continue beyond September. I've been told that TfL, Congestion, Essex and Suffolk Water are working flat out to finalise a revised programme and to identify mitigations to reduce the impact on residents and businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you all know, I actually recognise the fact that you were the Mayor to get the work started, so, and I have thanked you for that publicly, because it needed to be done. My issue, Mr. Mayor, is I have been defending TfL on the delays and what have you, but it doesn't help when I write to TfL on the 11th of August to be told on the 22nd of August, which is 11 days later, that there will be no delay, and I publicly say, in spite of all these rumours going around, TfL are correct, there won't be a delay, and then to be told only 5 days later, actually, yes, there is a major delay of over a month. You know, can there not be more transparency? You know, I'm trying to work with you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate what you have done, but can we just join the dots up, please?
Chair, two responses to what the member said. Firstly, just to say back to him, he's been an ally in this venture. It's a good example of a Conservative member and a Labour member working really closely together to the benefit of those residents. And he's really helped me lobby the government, the previous government and the current one, and I'm really grateful. It's not good enough, his experience. Can I, Chair, undertake to get the TfL, I'll get my deputy mayor to be there as well, to meet with him, to let him know where we are, why he was given the information he was. I don't know about that, but also what happens now. So not only are TfL transparent to him, he can then report on to his constituents who deserve to know, A, why there's a delay, and also what the timelines are to do this piece of work, because we've got this far, we're getting the work done. It's just infuriating, the lack of communication with him.
And Mr Mayor, I don't want you to answer this, but it is just communication. We understand there are problems, of course there are, and I'm happy to keep my residents informed. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Just to say, my time, this leads to conspiracy theories and people thinking the worst. That's why it's really important to be transparent with members like him and also to the residents. So I'll take action.
Assembly Member Turrell.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mr Mayor. On the subject of TfL projects and their funding, you might have seen a couple of weeks ago that Neil Coyle, the MP for Bermondsey Southwark, recently produced a report saying that to fund the Bakerloo line extension to Hayes in Bromley, that you should create an MDC specifically to build on Bromley's green belt. Could I ask you to rule that out?
Firstly, Chair, I'm sure it's in order for the member to ask a question about that on Gallows Corner. There's two things I'd say to him. Firstly, unfortunately, we've got no plans anyway for the Bakerloo line extension to go as far as that anyway. So they aren't, in the plans we currently have. At this stage, we're trying to persuade the government to fund some further work required for BLE as it is, which, just to reassure him, doesn't go to the area he's concerned about.
Thank you for that answer, Mr Mayor. I would just clarify for the Chair. I did begin by saying TfL funding.
That's how you do it, by the way.
Sorry. Well, it's how you do it, but it's very thin. But actually, it's very thin, but a good
chances of it getting built as well.
But a good exchange, Mr Mayor, that we'd like to see on a few more questions. Do you know what I mean, in terms of answers? OK, let's then... we finished on Gallows Corner. No one else is going to do any thin lines come in. OK, so... Jubilee line? So this is, on this question, we're going on the clock. It's me, Mr Mayor. So over to you.
Well, thank you, Chair, for asking the question in the absence of Senator Baker. In central London, the congestion charge scheme aims to manage traffic and congestion by reducing the numbers of vehicles that enter the zone during charging hours. Following its introduction, the scheme has been effective in reducing traffic and congestion in central London. There was a 30% reduction in congestion within the zone and a 15% reduction in circulating traffic. There's always been a green discount for the congestion charge to provide an incentive for people who drive in the zone to do so in the least polluting vehicles, helping to reduce air quality pollution and carbon emissions. However, the cleaner vehicle discount is due to come to an end in December of this year, a decision that has been known since 2018, 7 years ago. TfL has recently consulted on some changes, including a new cleaner vehicle discount, rather than cancelling this completely, which was the plan in 2018. The new proposals seek to balance the need to meet the scheme's primary objective of managing traffic and congestion, whilst also supporting those who need to drive to do so in the cleanest possible vehicle. The implementation of these proposals, a big concession from the original decision, is subject to the review of consultation responses and my final decision. Without the proposals, TfL estimates next year alone 2,200 more vehicles would use the congestion charge zone on an average weekday during charging hours. I fully appreciate the need for journeys to be done by motor vehicles. To that end, many van drivers and businesses themselves benefit from reduced traffic in the congestion charge zone and the reduced running costs of electric vehicles. I'm committed to keep London moving while supporting sustainable travel. Policies that support and incentivise the transition to cleaner vehicles include the ULEZ and the accompanying scrappage scheme, which supported businesses in their transition to cleaner vehicles. I also want London to be the world's first EV-ready global city by working with partners to double the amount of charging points installed since 2016 to more than 40,000 by 2030. TfL continues its delivery of charging infrastructure, installing rapid charging points on the roadside, building new ultra-rapid charging hubs, and working with boroughs to deliver on-street charge points for London's residents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, Assembly Member Baker has been leading some this work within the Labour group, and in doing so has identified a number of groups which you have alluded to in some of your questioning. So in terms of the future tariffs and the review, can we urge again for TfL to give consideration, and yourself, to thinking about the incentives for those small businesses that made the transition to electric cars? So we know small businesses are struggling in this particular issue and are important in terms of the growth strategy that government has identified. Two, car clubs, another area where we need to incentivise and given on where they've moved to electric cars. Is it possible to have a reduced tariff or no tariff still in your consideration? And, you know, in terms of just recognising that there's still more work to encourage people, we're concerned on our side that many people that have either moved towards electric or were thinking about still moving towards electric might be stalled because there is no further incentive for them to do so. So we want to see this drive for cleaner vehicles, as you've alluded to in your answer. Is it possible for that consideration? Can you pass on our views about this important work that we want to see it continue in terms of encouraging cleaner vehicles and therefore a reduced tariff in some form under a future review?
Thanks, Chair. Clearly I'm aware that the Labour group did make representations in response to the consultation, which should be taken on board by TfL, I'm sure. The starting point is this: look, in 2018 the intention was, when we introduced the cleaner vehicle discounts, for it to end completely in December 2025. But he makes a really good point in the fact that some small businesses have invested in electric vehicles. Question: can there be some way of rewarding them post December 2025? And similarly, there are some people who have decided not to be car owners but to use car clubs. Question: can there be some way to reward them by way of a reduction when it comes to if I decide to continue with a cleaner vehicle discount post December? Those are some of the things I'm sure TfL will look into in relation to the report they're going to prepare for me and the decision I take. But it's a point well made and received loud and clear.
Thank you. I'm now going back off, well, we're going off the clock for me, and I'm passing over to Assembly Member Boff.
Mr. Mayor, on the Central London issue, did you consult with disabled groups prior to the announcement of the car-free day on Oxford Street for more than an hour before the issuing of your press release?
Well, Chair, the question is about congestion charge. I've not got the answer to that particular question, but I can go away and get the answer, and somebody can respond to the member.
Well, I can almost answer it for you. You didn't. Can you remember talking to any amenity groups or residents' associations prior to the announcement of the car-free day?
I mean, Chair, I'm more than happy to answer these questions, but all the member's got to do is ask the question in writing, and I'll get a briefing and stuff. I mean, there's no surprises here. The question I'm asked about is about the cleaner vehicle discount. The member's got legitimate questions about Oxford Street.
Mr. Mayor, this is a big thing for you.
I can write to the member after
the car-free day is a big thing for you, and you promised when you were establishing the MDC that you would engage with residents and Londoners, and there would be ongoing stakeholder engagement activities before and after the establishment of the MDC. That doesn't seem to have happened in this case, when neither amenity groups, councillors, taxi organisations, Westminster Council themselves, maybe Assembly Member Small Edwards had some idea that it was going to happen an hour before it was announced, but all the others, there was nothing. Is this the kind of level of consultation that we can expect from the MDC?
Well, I can answer the general point, Chair, without answering the specific point, which is he's aware that the powers and responsibilities of a Mineral Development Corporation, which is what an MDC is set out in statute. I'm also quite clear that our plans to pedestrianise Oxford Street are well received. More than 7 out of 10 who responded are in favour of our plans.
This is not what I'm talking about.
On Sunday, the 21st September, for one day only, in advance of that street being pedestrianised, hopefully, we will have a taster of what that will involve. And I'm sure the team responsible for organising the 21st September will have engaged with.
I look forward to communication from you, Mr. Mayor, about how much consultation took place, because I know the Liberal Democrat and Green groups, and indeed the Labour group, were hoodwinked into supporting the MDC on the basis that consultation would be next level. And in this example, there has been none whatsoever. Will you improve upon the consultation processes when the MDC comes into operation?
I'm astonished, Chair, when a member claims to care about an issue, can't be bothered to write a question so I can get a briefing to answer. If he cared so much, why don't ask the question in writing?
Mr. Mayor, like Westminster City Council, I had bloody no notice of whether or not this was going to be introduced, and that's why I've raised it now. No notice whatsoever. Chair. No notice whatsoever. It was a surprise.
A member of his experience and longevity knows.
It was a surprise to the leader of Westminster Council to find out, for example, that a temporary management order has been put into to do it. Westminster Council themselves didn't know about the temporary management order until the last minute, and this is an example of consultation going forward. You've got to do better, Mr. Mayor.
I think we can see that the race to be the next Conservative mayoral candidate has begun, and Boff's in the lead at the moment, raising issues that may matter to members of the Conservative Party in Westminster.
We're going to move on. So the Conservatives have withdrawn their question on keeping Londoners safe.
Interesting. Sorry, Chair.
Mr. Mayor,
can you repeat what you said?
Because you're doing exactly what the others
have withdrawn their interest in keeping Londoners safe.
If you want to give me extra time, believe you me, I've got loads of questions. Not that you would answer them anyway.
Calm down, everybody. Please calm down, everybody.
Give it up.
I'm now going to also alert you to...
Alex, you're the real opposition here now.
You to
you're the real opposition here.
Sorry, Chair, the Mayor is just turning his mic on and talking over you and everyone else, and you rebuked Assembly members.
This is the former leader speaking now.
I did rebuke before I moved on, and I'm trying to move on with the meeting. Right, so the next question that I need to alert you to that's been withdrawn, Mr. Mayor, it'd be OK to hold back on this, is the late night venue question in the name of Assembly Member Emma Best. I will now move to London as an international city in the name of Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Sorry, Chief, is late night venues withdrawn as well?
Yes.
Okay. Right, interesting. Okay, thanks for the question. I always champion London as the best place to work, live and visit, and bang the drum to ensure it remains one of the most competitive international cities. This June was the biggest ever month for business and investment in London, with South by Southwest London, 2025 Concordia Europe Summit, London Tech Week and London Climate Action Week, all cementing London's reputation as a global economic, cultural and technological powerhouse. In July, I led a trade mission to Africa, the first such visit by Mayor of London, to promote the capital and deepen trade and investment links with the African continent. I'm proud that London attracted nearly 3 times as many foreign direct investment projects as any other European city last year, despite a challenging international economic context. Despite opposition from some in the Assembly, I continue to invest in London and Partners, which delivered a record-breaking year in 2024-2025, contributing £677 million to London's economy, their highest annual contribution since LNP was established. Last year, they supported or created 8,200 jobs and supported 110 businesses in high productivity sectors to invest, establish or expand in London. London has also been named the world's most popular destination for 2025 by TripAdvisor. Our proposals to transform Oxford Street will help attract more visitors and showcase the best of London to the world, creating a world-class urban space for shopping, leisure and outdoor events. To maintain this success, London needs the right tools. That's why, with London councils, I launched the London Growth Plan in February, our ambitious vision to realise the huge potential of London as a global city. The plan will ensure that London is at the forefront of international growth in industries of the future, such as AI, life sciences, clean tech, creative industries and quantum computing. Devolving more power to London would help our goal to maintain the capital's global competitiveness, as London lacks similar powers when compared to global competitors such as Paris, Tokyo and New York. I look forward to working with the government to build on our shared ambitions for devolution.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. An incredibly strong list there in terms of what you've done over the during your track record as Mayor, working with obviously the new government, London councils, to ensure that London is the greatest city in the world. Certainly when I've spoken to other cities' representatives globally, hold in high regard in terms of what you've done here in London. Now, one of the things that we've talked about previously is that, of course, we want to make sure that London is also not just a great city, but a great city for everyone living here, a more equitable city. We used to receive funds, of course, when we were back in the days before Brexit from the European Union, then through the UK SPF, and now that will be integrated through our new integrated settlements, which used to support startups, local business growth, skills and employment support for Londoners in every corner. How will you ensure that the new integrated settlement ensures that we continue to make sure that every Londoner benefits from that sort of support?
Well, it's important to complete the picture that he portrayed. He'll be aware when we were members of the European Union, we received huge sums of money to invest in growth. We were promised by the Brexiteers that all that money would come back to us and we'd have control. Promised investment of, I think, £350 million in the NHS per week, we were told. Well, what you've seen is the previous government say, oh, no, don't worry, you'll get it through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. But that was far less than we received from the European Union. And I'm afraid now that's been cut as well from the previous government to much less than we received from the European Union. What we're trying to do is to make sure when it comes to the new government, we can have a multi-year settlement from the government. And the good news is they've agreed to an integrated settlement, which means a multi-year deal from the government with less strings attached. So we'll be lobbying the government to make sure as part of the integrated settlement, we can have the devolution of resources to support us with skills in particular. We needed an inclusive talent pipeline, but also in relation to employment activities and business community as well. And that's really important as far as, making London continue to be the greatest city in the world to start a business, to expand the business and to do business in.
Absolutely agree with that, Mayor. Finally, I want to congratulate all of those Londoners who received A-levels and GCSE results last month. And of course, whatever results they received, some will be absolutely ecstatic, some would have been less so. What I want to make sure is that we have the best opportunities here in London to ensure whether it's apprenticeships, jobs, university placements at home or abroad for those young people. What are you doing to ensure that they've got the best opportunities in life?
Yeah, really important question. Well, firstly, can I say congratulate those who did really well, but those who didn't do as well as they'd wanted, honestly, there's the second and third and fourth chance. And it's really important people don't lose hope in relation to their future prospects because of what may have happened when they receive their results. One of the things we're lobbying the government for is more devolution of careers advice. Because one of the things he will know is often a young person doesn't have the right advice, and those signposts are really important. So, yes, we're doing some work now in relation to careers work, work around apprenticeship support, and also we're doing outreach into communities. The prize, though, is a pan-London career service, which means we could give somebody bespoke advice. There'd be no wrong door. But also some people, A-levels isn't for them. Surely far better they know a bit earlier, so they can be given other routes to the sort of the ladder to get the job, the vocation, the career they want, rather than going through the torturous period of 2 years of studying for A-levels they don't want to do. They're not necessarily good at that, but can give them support earlier to the career path they'll enjoy and be rewarded.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As somebody who used to deliver services in that area, I very much support the words that you've said there.
Okay, so Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
Morning, Mr Mayor. How are you? Given the importance of housing to London's competitiveness, how concerned are you about the collapse in house building in London? I mean, we've had only 2,158 private houses across the whole of London for the first half of 2025.
So I'm really concerned in relation to the lack of starts across the country, including London, in the recent period. He'll be because he takes an interest in this, about the perfect storm that we are facing. More recently, we've seen a worldwide shortage of construction materials because of the pandemic, which is causing problems worldwide, by the way. New York, Paris, Barcelona have similar challenges to us in terms of construction inflation. But in the UK, we've got particular issues in relation to concerns around building safety. In London, he will know that we have taller buildings than other parts of the country. 97% of new builds in London are flats. And because of the delay with the building safety regulator, that's led to a real lag as well in terms of new starts in London. But I'm concerned about the lack of homes being started across the country, including our capital city. And that's why it's important to make sure that we address some of those challenges that we talked about.
Well, what are you going to do to address your challenges? Because we have just 9,100 private homes are forecast to be completed during the next 24-month period. That puts your ability to deliver under huge pressure. And what do you think it says about Angela Rayner's record as Housing Secretary? She's left London nowhere near achieving the 88,000 homes that she would have liked to have seen. She's put you under even more pressure. So what can you do to alleviate that?
There's a lot of things we're doing to address some of the challenges that we face. The big problem we've had in London is the delay with the building safety regulator making a decision on tall buildings. And the appointment of a new regulator, Andy Rowe, somebody we all know here very well, will hopefully speed things up in relation to decisions that need to be made sooner rather than later. Second big challenge we have in relation to London is the issue of availability of land and expense of land. So we're working with developers, councils, the government and our team here to try and bring in practice notes and guidance with the London plan to accelerate some of this process that's causing problems. Third big thing we support, which the government's done, is not just to announce a record-breaking 10-year deal for affordable housing, but also to support us in relation to a GLA investment fund and also another database scheme, Atlas, to try and unlock those sites that the developers could be going with a better support they will be going. So a number of things we are doing. Councils are also being successful in lobbying the government to try and allow councils to match the right to buy receipts with affordable housing grant provision, which means that they can now use the funds that are currently sitting in banks to try and get these homes built from councils as well. There's a lot more things we're doing as well, which I'm more than happy to write to him about. I did have an answer ready for him, but I suspect we're not going to get to his question for reasons I understand.
Why did Andrew Rayner let you drop your target for the 2021-26 Affordable Homes Programme, for which you received $4 billion? You've only delivered 5,500 of the homes have been started, and only 997 of them have been completed, far, far under what we need to match the pace. And most of what you've just said as well was detailing the challenges, which are well rehearsed. I want to hear more about what you're going to do to address this very low level of delivery. Again, I believe the government have put you under even greater pressure. What are you going to do to change the landscape to get some of these houses delivered?
Well, firstly, he'll be aware that the government also renegotiated with Homes England in relation to the starts with the affordable housing programme. It wasn't just London that they renegotiated with, and that's because the government realised that the targets agreed in 2020 were a challenge, but also he will know in London, although the programme was agreed in 2020, it wasn't launched until summer 2023 because of delays in MHCLG under the previous government, but also the issues by the uncertainty around second staircases. So that's the reason why there were challenges in relation to starts in London. But the government also invited Homes England to renegotiate original terms with them as well. Part of the solution is he will welcome, I'm sure, the announcement from the government in terms of a long-term rent settlement for social housing providers will make a big difference, and also the social rent conversion will make a big difference as well. And as I said, the third big change is changing how the building safety regulator works to avoid the issue of delay, which has been a big problem.
But the level of delivery has been so low that some of the problems that you've detailed, and I accept some of them are very, very real and very, very tough, doesn't explain every reason why we're so far behind. At the current rate of progress, you have absolutely no chance of satisfying even this new lower figure you'll need to deliver. So what will you be doing differently with the new Housing Secretary? Because what I'm suggesting is something needs to change, because much of what you said we've known for a very long time. Angela Rayner made very big statements. I know that the City Hall team are focused on this and want to make this change, but what are you going to do differently, or will we be here in 5 years' time when these houses still won't be delivered?
Well, no, our track record is we not just meet government targets, we smash them. and so I'm confident we will meet this government target and smash it. My concern is in relation less in terms of affordable housing, which I think we'll make progress on. It's market value housing for reasons that he will know. I mean, there's a perfect storm faced by developers. I'm lobbying the government to try and use the opportunity to be counter-cyclical and focus on social housing and affordable housing at this time when developers, understandably, are facing real problems in terms of inflation, interest rates, the construction issues they face. And developers are really keen to get going, and we're confident we can make progress.
Okay, the delivery of housing as well as social housing we'll return to, because you're correct, it is a big issue because most people in London are not eligible for social housing, so need other market housing to be developed as well.
He's right, and that's one of the reasons. I'm sorry I'm not taking much time, but we're also looking at intermediate housing as well, because he's spot on. A lot of Londoners aren't eligible for social housing, so he's right. There's a bit in between we've got to focus on as well.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Garrett.
Morning. So we're talking about London being a successful international city, and we remain actually the third most visited, third highest international visitors of any city in the world. Quite what our visitors this week are making of the union-induced transport chaos is anyone's guess. But an important part of being a successful international city is obviously the hospitality industry, to welcome and feed and help those people enjoy their time here. Over the summer, we've seen continued job losses thanks to Labour's jobs tax. 90,000 jobs lost in hospitality across the UK. We know that many of those will be in London. It's such a big part of our economy. Why aren't you opposing Labour's damaging jobs tax?
What's the jobs tax?
The national insurance increase, which is cited by many businesses, and particularly by hospitality businesses, for the damage that it is doing to their trade.
Well, I can talk about hospitality and the wider economy. In terms of hospitality, the latest figures from the Nighttime Industry Association shows an increase in venues over the last year. And in central London, an increase by 10%, across London by 4%. And in terms of unemployment more widely, going back over the last 25 years, the London rate of unemployment has been around 1 or 2 percentage points higher than national. So it's in line now with what it's been for the last 25 years.
So the hospitality industry says that urgent action is needed because Chancellor Rachel Reeves' autumn budget disproportionately harmed their industry, but you're saying they're wrong. So let's look wider. Over the summer, we've also seen the Institute of Chartered Surveyors. They survey all businesses, not just hospitality. This is now across the board. They produced over the summer their latest business confidence monitor. I quote, "April's rise in employers' national insurance contributions has been a major concern for businesses in the capital, with the proportion of businesses citing the tax burden as a growing challenge reaching a survey record high of 57% in Q2 2025, 3 times the historic average. All businesses in London are saying that this is a problem." And what, you're defending the government's NI increase? Why aren't you standing up for these London businesses and the people that they employ and the people they no longer employ because they've lost their job?
So we can both hurl stats at each other. London's economic inactivity is lower than most of the regions across the country. Wage growth last year was the fastest since 2005. London is number 1 in Europe and number 3 globally for life sciences investment in our city. In research innovation, we're now number 2, on the cusp of getting to number 1 behind Boston. Our business environment is number 2 globally, just behind New York. We've overtaken San Francisco, New York and Boston in terms of life sciences cluster. Look, he can talk down London as much as he wants. It sounds a bit like reform. I'm going to talk up London and the reasons why we're the best place in the world to do business in.
So 57% of London businesses say that Labour's tax on jobs is a huge problem, but the Mayor says they're wrong, so people can choose who they believe. You mentioned life sciences. You've probably seen the news this week, Merck scrapping a £1 billion investment that was already underway. It had been underway since 2023. They basically pulled out, and they said, and I quote, "Simply put, the UK is not internationally competitive." This was underway, started under the Conservatives, has been cancelled under this useless Labour government, and the national insurance jobs tax brought in by disaster Rachel Reeves is a big part of it. Why are you just making excuses and not standing up for investment and jobs in London?
It's disappointing, Merrick's decision, but his question, which I'm sure she'll allow me to answer, is why aren't I standing up for investment in London? So let me address that particular question which he's asked. So this June we had the biggest ever month for business and investment in London for the first time ever. South by Southwest was in Europe and chose London to be the destination. Huge source of investment. That's why I'm not standing up for investment. Concordia came to London for the first time as part of Concordia Europe Summit. We're the biggest ever London Tech Week, standing up for investment. The biggest ever London Climate Action Week, standing up for investment, green investment. The London Stock Exchange being the Green Financial Centre. Standing up for investment, despite the Tories wanting me to close London Partners has led to their best ever year, securing £677 million inward investment from overseas, standing up for trade and investment. And as a consequence of me standing up for investment, we're number one in Europe when it comes to life sciences, which he referred to. Research innovation linked to life sciences. We're close second behind Boston. And according to all objective indicators, we are still the most attractive place to invest in Europe and one of the most in the world.
It sounds like you've inherited a great legacy from the previous government. What's happening is that hospitality, all businesses across London, and specifically Merck's, are saying that under this Labour government and this Labour mayor, it is a disaster, and you're simply ignoring them and quoting figures. We will see what happens. We will see what happens. But simply quoting figures of what's happened historically is not going to cut the mustard when people are losing their jobs. Thanks, Chair.
I think Garrett's running as well. There's Boff and there's Garrett. Who else is running to be the next Tory candidate for mayor?
This is contemptuous of Londoners who are trying to get to work, losing their jobs, and businesses that are struggling. He just makes it an idiotic and petulant, childish political remark, Chair. It is not good enough, and it does explain why Londoners don't think their mayor is speaking up for them.
Okay, this is why Susan took him out. Assembly Member Georgiou.
Mr. Mayor, US tourists and US business are some of the most vital lifelines for London's economy, making us an international city. Our current ambassador is the Lord Peter Mandelson. You appointed. I know you're laughing about the best pal of a paedophile. Why are you laughing, Mr. Mayor? Why are you laughing, Mr. Mayor? Why are you laughing, Mr. Mayor? Best pal of a paedophile. Well, anyway, we'll move on. You appointed the Lord Mandelson to your business board, even after it transpired later on that the Lord Mandelson, Labour Lord Mandelson, was the best pal of a paedophile after he was convicted, Jeffrey Epstein, of sexual offences. Should the Prime Minister not have sacked him sooner?
So it's quite clear we have an analogue member in a digital age. Look, it's quite clear. I think the Prime Minister's done the right thing in relation to what he's chosen to do. And that's a problem, Chair, when you write a question the night before, you tweak it in the morning and don't keep an eye on the phone.
So he shouldn't have sacked him earlier? He should or he shouldn't? Should he have sacked him earlier? Yes or no? Keep laughing about the best pal of a paedophile. Carry on. But should he have sacked him earlier?
Chair, I'm trying to be generous with the questions, remit and stuff, but...
It's not... Look...
It's an international question.
I mean, if you start asking the mayor a question about the London Business Board or whatever Mandelson was on,
all right, I'll try this. Chair, with the greatest respect, respect to you as I respect your chair. I'll try this a different way.
Thank you.
One thing that does not make us an international city is when we have a laughing stock of a Labour government and a Labour mayor. And one of the things that creates a destabilising environment for international investment is destabilisation of the government. The Prime Minister expressed confidence in Lucy Powell, sacked her. Expressed confidence in Rushanara Ali, sacked her. Expressed full confidence in Tulip Sadiq, sacked her. Expressed full confidence in Angela Rayner, sacked her. Expressed full confidence in Peter Mandelson, the best pal of the convicted paedophile, and sacked him. Has he expressed full confidence in you?
Well, Chair, I could read out a list of all the Tories sacked from 2010 and 2025. Will you indulge me?
I think we get the gist.
From Prime Ministers who have been sacked, to Chancellors who have been sacked, to Ministers of London who have been sacked, to Transport Secretaries sacked. I mean, when I first became Mayor, David Cameron was Prime Minister. What happened to him?
So there we go. No confidence in the Mayor of London from the Prime Minister. You might just survive then, Sadiq. Dawn Butler will come for you later, I'm sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then we, after I'm sure you'll allow me to answer the question. And then after David Cameron as Prime Minister, we had Theresa May. She was sacked.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Assembly Member James Moore Edwards. Sorry? You're withdrawing?
Yeah, he didn't steal your question.
Thank you very much. At this point, I think it's worth a 10-minute adjustment just to reform ourselves. Thank you very much.
Return at 12 o'clock on the dot, please.
Sorry, can I just begin again? Can I welcome you back to this second part of this morning's meeting? Just before we go to priority questions, I just want to offer a little bit of a shout out for and a message of support to the growing Spanish and Portuguese speaking communities who help us make London one of the most diverse cities in the world. During this year, Amigo Month, I would like to express our support for your celebrations over the next few weeks, and it's important that we recognise the contributions your communities bring to our great city, and a big thank you from us. There will be an opportunity to do a photograph for Assembly members at the end of this meeting. Now let's go back to priority questions. We've got a question in terms of fairer funding in the name of Assembly Member Turrell.
Chair, I'm sure if the group were in the room outside, they'd say gracias and obrigado. So thank you for saying that.
No.
Thank you for your question. London is the greatest city in the world. Our capital is a global economic powerhouse, the engine of the UK economy and a beacon for innovation and inclusion. Despite the huge impact of Brexit, the pandemic and 14 years of austerity by the previous government, we've managed to continue building a fairer, safer, greener and more prosperous London. I want to continue to harness the economic power and potential of our capital for the benefit of Londoners and the whole country. However, if London is to continue driving the national economy and help the UK return to the high rates of growth we saw prior to the global financial crisis, we cannot risk repeating the mistakes of the past. Our city suffered under the weight of austerity for too long. Now is the time for investment, not further cuts, which would not only suppress growth, it would stifle our potential as well. I welcome the government's acknowledgement of the GLA Group's unique arrangements and the willingness to reach a bespoke integrated settlement that addresses our funding needs. I also welcome the additional funding for house building from the government, as well as the new long-term capital deal for Transport for London. This all represents a significant change in approach from the previous government. At this stage, the detail of the fair funding formula has not been released, and we will know more information in due course. However, I'll continue to work closely with the government, as I currently do with the Treasury and MHCLG, amongst others, to make the case for London getting a fair funding deal. It is my view that any funding formulas used to determine the level of support councils receive must take into account the disproportionately high housing and living costs of the capital, as well as appropriate deprivation indicators. Otherwise, we risk support being taken away from those Londoners who need it most. The funding we receive from government must therefore be fair and should take into account London's unique position and setup. London accounts for around 25% of total GDP, despite only having approximately 13% of the population. And with the right investment and support, we can utilise London's potential to deliver national growth and increase the billions of surplus we generate for the Treasury.
Thank you for your answer there, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you'll be as frustrated as I was when on the 15th of August I saw a TikTok from Jonathan Brash, the Labour MP for Hartlepool, where he said in this TikTok, "On council tax we've scored a huge victory, with ministers agreeing to move funding from southern councils to towns like Hartlepool. This has meant that we have frozen council tax this year. So as a result of this government's policies, residents in Hartlepool get a council tax freeze, residents in places like residents in London end up with councils facing bankruptcy. Do you think this needs to be readdressed?"
So I just don't know about the TikTok he refers to. But on his general point, I mean, decisions for 25-26 were taken a while ago, so I'm not sure if that addresses the point of 25-26. I'm concerned about councils' budgets. It's not part of a political point. Councils spend a lot of money on statutory services they have to provide, temporary accommodation, children's services, and so forth. They have to do that. And that leaves less money on the discretionary services we'd like, youth clubs and so forth. And the funding formula isn't fair, and so I welcome a fairer funding formula. What I wouldn't want, frankly speaking, is money taken away from London, not because, you know, for the obvious reason I'm the Mayor of London, but the inequalities in London are huge. But also, with the right support, we can contribute even more to the Treasury, which can support people across the country and stuff. So, for me, it's a false economy, doing London down.
Thank you very much. Can I go on the clock because I want to speak on this? Mr. Mayor, you will be aware of the London Council submission. And in asking you a question on this, I recognise what government is having to do and balance some of those issues. And in some ways, that's where some of the inequities come into in terms of the fairer funding issue. It seems to me that we're denying, or the government is not recognising, that deprivation, housing costs, particularly here in London, are as important as other parts of the country, whereas I accept they're as important as other parts of the country. And in doing that is imposing a real large burden on a number of local authorities in terms of meeting, if these are agreed, in meeting the financial gaps that they're going to create. Would you agree?
Well, both you and Member Torrell raised similar points in different ways. We've got to address the perception that exists that, the streets of London are paved with gold. They really aren't. You're both well aware of the inequalities in some parts of our city, but also the way the formula works doesn't take into account, the needs of our city, not just deprivation, housing costs. The cost of delivering services are much more expensive in London for obvious reasons. The demand for services is a big issue. So whether it comes to the business rates reset, whether it comes to, funding formulas, fair funding formulas, allocations to boroughs, these are legitimate concerns that I've got, and London Council are doing a great job raising their concerns. We all believe in those with the broadest shoulders carry the greatest burden. Well, most of us do. But I think the government, the civil servants advising the ministers are in danger of not recognising that those in London, many of them, and councils in particular, who do a huge amount, and I make a point for all political parties, carry a huge burden already. And I'm not sure if they can give up or if there's any slack in terms of finances to redistribute. And by giving us the right resources in terms of devolution, I think we could generate more wealth and prosperity that helps everyone, including Londoners.
Now, of course, London Councils is a all-party body that's come together. Their, I think, submission was all-party supported. Is it possible for you and the London Assembly, not just the chair of the Assembly, but the four political leaders, sign a letter saying, look very carefully at this London Council's documents. There are some very important points in there. We're all in agreement of this. We don't wish to do down colleagues in other parts of the countries. In fact, London has a proud record of redistribution of taxation to other parts of the country and will continue to do that. What we're seeking is a fairer settlement and a fairer recognition of our needs in London. Is it possible, do you think it's possible that we could come together on this issue?
More than happy to. Let's take a number of points. So firstly, yes, to answer your question directly. Secondly, the guys of the GLA have already responded to the consultation and I've supported London Councils. But I think London Councils would really appreciate the fact that the Assembly, and there's been some tension between the Assembly and councils across our city for historic reasons, but it would show real coming together of Team London, whether it's the GLA, the Assembly in particular, London Council. I think it's a really good idea, and I'm more than happy to also be a signatory to the representations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. After years of time.
I think you put it nearer to...
Wilson has run out of time. So we're now moving on to London summer economy in the name of Assembly Member Clark.
Thanks for your question. This has been a fantastic summer for London. We showed once again our strengths as a leading destination for visitors and as a global economic, cultural and technological powerhouse. June was our biggest ever month for business and investment. I thoroughly enjoyed attending London Tech Week, which attracted over 45,000 attendees and more than £4 billion of new investment deals. I opened both the inaugural South by Southwest London and Concordia Europe Summit and welcomed investors, global leaders, innovators and entrepreneurs from around the world with one key message: there has never been a better time to invest in London. And during London Climate Action Week, I launched a new climate finance task force and opened the fifth round of our £500 million Green Finance Fund, supporting projects to help us reach net zero by 2030. In July, I became the first Mayor of London to lead a trade mission to Africa and visited Nigeria, Ghana and South Africa with a delegation of 27 London companies. Together, we built new trade and cultural links, banging the drum for London, and promoted investment opportunities in fintech, education and the creative industries. I also announced a new London Africa Business Summit that will take place in 2026 to strengthen long-term partnership and unlock trade and investment opportunities. At the same time, I've continued to back London's local economies. I announced a High Street Place Labs investment of £600,000 in 12 places across the capital, including North Finchley, in the members' constituency, to improve the public realm and boost economic activity. I also invested £300,000 in a hugely successful Summer Streets programme, allowing more Londoners and visitors to make the most of the summer months by boosting alfresco dining and extending opening hours for our pubs, restaurants and venues. This has been an incredible summer for music as well, from Dua Lipa, Coldplay, Beyonce and many others, attracting millions of fans in our iconic venues and billions to our economy. To the Wimbledon Championships, the Women's Rugby World Cup taking place now, and Notting Hill Carnival, all showcasing our unique vibrancy and ongoing global appeal.
Thank you for that. Apart from 10 days of being away to visit my parents in Wisconsin, I have thoroughly enjoyed summer in London, enjoying lots of sport, lots of concerts, and being on our local high streets across our capital. And while I'm sure it's too early for a full analysis of the Summer Streets Fund, I'm wondering if you can update us on how it was rolled out and how local communities benefited.
Well, I hope she was frugal when she was overseas and not spending too much money overseas and save that to spend in London. But I'm glad she got away. So she's right. Look, we should where we can measure always the success of our policies or not. That's how we learn whether we should scale them up or maybe do something different. So we're doing a number of things to evaluate the success or otherwise of our investments. Should be aware there are 4 areas which benefited from the Summer Streets Fund: Brixton, Leyton, Shoreditch and the West End. We're evaluating from case studies, from speaking to representatives from hospitality and also footfall and other issues to see how successful they've been. And that helps make the business case internally as well as externally on whether we should invest in the future, and that's sort of kick-starting those sectors. And I'm somebody who's a big fan, because I enjoy them, of alfresco dining, late night socialising and so forth. And so, as well as making London a great place to visit, it makes us a great place to live, and I'll support those businesses. And I'll make sure we share with the Assembly some of that analysis that we do and the evaluation we do.
I think you made an excellent point earlier, as you always do, when you're visiting other cities, other places across the world. We're always banging the drum for London, and it comes back. I mean, we can see time again, top visited city in Europe, 3rd in the world. It's no wonder London has so much on offer, but actually we have a mayor and a government who are proud of our capital city, quite rightly. Onto your £600,000 investment in local high streets. How has that benefited our local economies in the city? How does that investment benefit our economy, our employment, and directly our high streets?
Well, look, most businesses in London are small businesses. 99% of businesses in London are small businesses, and that includes those in the high street. And so what we're trying to do, she'll be aware of the pressure on high streets for a number of years. Online has been a big pressure on high streets. Business rates going through the roof, rents going through the roof, the cost of doing business. And, as I said, consumer behaviour changing. So that's those are all pressures on our high street retail and so forth. And councils have tried really hard at bringing empty buildings back into use and so forth. So we're supporting councils in terms of, what they can do in terms of making high streets more attractive, bringing disused buildings back into use, providing affordable workspaces that improves the footfall. Can we support councils in design in terms of how you maintain public realm? We've discovered through evidence, making a street more attractive to walk on makes businesses do better. And so we're supporting Newham Council, for example, to make East Ham High Street more attractive and walkable. We're supporting Islington, another example in terms of its nighttime economy, in terms of a more inclusive offer. And so the return we'll get is those businesses flourishing and thriving, employ more people, they pay more taxes, national insurance. Those businesses flourish, but also give people a good experience as well. And so we are trying to get this circular economy going in terms of supporting local, which we think it will pay dividend in months, years and decades to come.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Should never turn it off. Assembly Member Russell on reduced road deaths and serious injury.
Thanks for your question. Can I thank the member for her recent report on this matter? Like her, I want to eradicate all loss of life and serious injuries from London streets, and that's why I remain committed to achieving Vision Zero by 2041. The good news is that since launching the Vision Zero Action Plan in 2018, TfL, in collaboration with the London boroughs, the Met Police Service and other partners, has delivered real tangible progress on road safety. There were 24% fewer people killed or seriously injured in 2024 compared to the average in 2010-2014, which is the year that the base starts from. This has meant a reduction of 1,162 people injured in that year alone, with fewer families and communities impacted as a result. The original action plan included major improvements, including the introduction of the lowering speeds limit programme, the rollout of the direct vision standard, and a focus by the Met Police to improve speed enforcement. Since 2018, TfL's bus safety standard has introduced safer bus designs, including intelligent speed limit technology, audible electric buses, and front-end changes to reduce collision impact. These safety innovations are world-leading. Such measurements have resulted in London making faster progress to reduce the number of people killed or seriously injured than the rest of the country, making London one of the safest major cities in the world. There is no doubt our target is ambitious, underscoring the need for TfL and its partners to intensify efforts. That is why, while producing the Vision Zero Action Plan 2, TfL has reflected on lessons learned and responded to evolving challenges and opportunities across the network. TfL's continued work with boroughs will be key. It is by working together they can introduce more 20 miles per hour speed limits. We can continue investing in high streets where traffic creates significant risk and ensure pedestrians and cyclists feel safer through improved infrastructure. It's also vital that TfL continues to work with the Met Police to retain a strong focus on enforcement action against criminal and antisocial road user behaviour. Behind the numbers, she'll be where every road victim is an individual, and that's why I remain committed to eliminating all deaths and serious injuries from London's transport networks by 2041. And I'll continue to work with her, TfL, London boroughs and the Met to make our streets safer for all road users, using Vision Zero Action Plan 2 to provide a unified approach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for noticing my report, which is full of suggestions for Vision Zero Action Plan 2, mainly practical ideas about making our roads, our streets physically safer, lobbying for better road rules, and changing the way we talk about road death and injury, because that is so important for the survivors of terrible crashes and bereaved families. Now, at the launch of the report out there in the London living room, we heard from survivor Victoria Lebrec. She lost a leg after being run over by a skip lorry while cycling back in 2014. Since then, 2 other women have each lost a leg on the same stretch of road. And you could have heard a pin drop when she described her acute distress at hearing that a 4th woman had been killed riding her bike on the same stretch of road. Now, when a crash happens on the railways, an investigation takes place and lessons are learned, and you would never have 4 separate crashes on one stretch of railway. So how will Vision Zero Action Plan 2 ensure that roads where a person has been killed or seriously injured will have that same kind of urgent, in-depth treatment?
Well, firstly, can I thank her for raising not just Victoria's case, but the other cases as well. Humanising this is really important. Secondly, one of the joys of Mayor's Question Time is often I get to read reports I otherwise wouldn't, and I've read her report and the 24 recommendations, and I'll make sure those are taken on board by the team that's drafting the new action plan. But she's right in terms of lessons not being learned. And there's a phrase that I hate, which is cost-benefit when it comes to these sorts of things. And I think in the rail industry, I know because my firm was involved in a previous public inquiry, that was a phrase used there as well about cost-benefit, the cost of doing the works and the benefit and so forth. And because the numbers are huge on the train, you can understand why it changed the viewing and stuff. We've got to understand one life injured, one life lost is one too many, and get away from the crude cost-benefit analysis. So can I take away the point she said and try and share with the TfL team what she said in the way she said it, so they can understand why it's really important to make sure that the misery is not compounded by hearing somebody else suffer the same thing as you.
Thank you. And I think it's not a question of spending huge amounts of extra money. You could do things just by reducing speed limits at that kind of a location, because it's clearly somewhere where there are risks and dangers.
Interrupt on that. She's raised a really important point. She should understand the difference she has made with public education. So we now have the data. In the first year, 20 miles per hour, 25% fewer collisions, 24% fewer people killed and seriously injured. And so that shows the difference we can make by little things, simple things, reducing the speed.
Exactly. And it's really important we remember that those things are about saving lives, not about making people's lives more inconvenient on their journeys. Helsinki, in August this year, managed to achieve a whole year with not a single road death on their streets. So it is possible to do. And I really appreciate that Andy Lord, the Commissioner, wants there to be a step change in action on Vision Zero. So I think that the sort of really important thing that you can take away from this is that bereaved families need to know that you are still taking a leadership role on Vision Zero to bring all Londoners, people working at TfL, the boroughs, the bus operators, everyone who drives on the roads, bring everyone together so that we can all get behind this as a real mission, because we could be doing so much better.
Can I just echo every word she said? That's my promise I make to her. And just, I've got to make this point. This is not anti-car. This is really not anti-car. This is pro-safety. And I'd challenge anybody who thinks it's anti-car just to meet some of the people that Caroline meets regularly and I meet regularly to hear some of their stories.
Thank you.
Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you. And can I just say thank you for putting the speed cameras on the remaining part of the A10 in Enfield. Already I'm hearing from local residents that noise is reduced, but also that actually from car drivers that actually their journey is better because speeds have been smoothed out and there's no longer the braking and stopping and starting that there used to be. So reducing speed has many benefits, not just safety. But I wanted to ask you about 20-mile-an-hour boroughs. Enfield is currently consulting on local streets, residential streets and town centres becoming 20 mile an hour. Will you applaud them for doing that?
First, I don't want to prejudge what decision the council may take, but it's worth reminding Londoners that 95% of the roads in London are controlled directly by 32, 33 boroughs, not by TfL. And I call the councils who have decided to, reduce by default all their roads to 20 miles per hour a coalition of the willing in terms of their commitment to this issue. And I think Caroline Russell articulated the difference it can make in terms of 20 miles per hour. And I'm really pleased she raised with me some months ago the problems with the previous cameras in that part of London. Some of the images I saw of sort of racing because people became aware of that issue. Yeah, so thank you very much. And it's really important, and I'm really pleased Enfield are doing this in terms of, working with the residents to get a right solution. And fingers crossed, we get more boroughs, taking this brave decision.
And you, in your last answer to Caroline, you alluded to the fact that this is not anti-car. In fact, people campaigning against this proposal spouting misinformation. They're suggesting that every road in the borough is going to 20 mile an hour, which is not the case. It is residential streets where, quite frankly, you shouldn't be going more than 20 miles an hour, and town centres. But also trying to say that this is yet another anti-car initiative. What can you and we do to make sure that the debate is framed around one about better safety, better health and air quality and protection of the most vulnerable, especially our children?
I mean, I think a question addresses some of the points I would have raised, which is actually there's some research being done. I'll come to safety in a second. Having lower speed limits has a negligible impact on journey times and congestion, as they're largely dictated by junction delays, not vehicle speeds. That's the issue when it comes to those issues. The second point is when I share with her this and as I said, every statistic is a person and a family. There has been a 75% in reduction of children killed. 75% reduction in children killed in 20 miles per hour areas compared to previously. That shows, without being too pompous, this is saving lives. We've got to recognise that most people who are killed or seriously injured are pedestrians. The second group are cyclists. And so it's really important that we understand and explain to some drivers who may think this is anti-car, the reasons why we're doing this, and to try and make them understand why it's an important policy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's then move on to Assembly Member Bakari, supporting women and girls.
Thanks for the question. I've made tackling violence against women and girls a top priority, overseeing a record investment of £233 million into tackling violence against women and girls and its root causes. Through the 2022-2025 VAWG strategy, working with partners, we've reached millions of Londoners through education, campaigns and provision of vital services. Ensuring that victims and survivors, including the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our society, can access the right support is at the heart of the strategy's success. Safe accommodation is essential to supporting high-risk victims and survivors of domestic abuse. I'm proud to have overseen investment of over £53 million in domestic abuse safe accommodations, DASA, supporting more than 40,000 victims and survivors. We know that black and minority ethnic women and girls experiencing VAWG are particularly vulnerable. As part of my approach to support London's diverse communities, I've invested £6 million through my VAWG Grassroots Fund, providing vital support to organisations helping support victims and survivors of VAWG in marginalised communities. Since 2022, I've also overseen investment of £2 million to prevent and support victims of harmful practices, including through my FGM Stops Here campaign and by establishing the UK's first citywide harmful practices community education pilot. The strategy makes clear that the solution to tackling VAWG lies in changing men and boys' harmful attitudes and behaviours. And that's why we invested over £1 million into the VAWG Prevention Schools Toolkit and launched the multi-award winning Have a Word and Say Mate to a Mate campaigns, which have proven to empower people to call out misogynistic behaviour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to interrupt just slightly earlier than you wish, but I just wanted to let you know that Southall Black Sisters are here in the gallery here listening to your answer. I want to know whether you're aware of the fact that public funding from MOPAC for their life-saving wraparound service has come to an end at the end of this month. Do you agree that this is going against your own strategy, that this decision by MOPAC is going against your own strategy of violence against women and girls?
Well, firstly, can I welcome Southall Black Sisters to Mayor's question. I know them very well. In my previous life, I gave them pro bono advice on a regular basis, and I'm proud to have done so. So what MOPAC announced in 2019 was a 2-year service called the London Holistic Advocacy Wraparound Service. So it's a 2-year worth of funding. Everyone knew it was going to be 2 years funding, which would have ended in 2021. The work that was undertaken under this limited funding was so life-changing and life-saving. I extended it from 2021 up until 2025. She'll be aware, because of less money from the Ministry of Justice, our ability to carry on with the LHAWAS service, the wraparound service, I couldn't carry on.
I understand your commitment here, but unfortunately, the new rules of your domestic abuse safe accommodation programme means that Southall Black Sisters will struggle to get funding from next April because they work in a partnership model with smaller organisations. Will you review this rule?
Which I'd like to finish the third question fully. And so what we've done is we've made sure there are other funding, grant funding available to groups like SBS. So there is a DASA grant funding, which I've talked about, which is already funding equivalent services provided by others. I know MOPAC are in close contact with Southall Black Sisters and with potential other funders as well. My understanding is that the DASA funding funds equivalent services but through a different funding stream, and that funding wasn't supposed to end in 2021, so we can carry that forward. But I'm more than happy for my team to carry on working with not just Southall Black Sisters, but other services that provide services that are from the community for the community.
I'm so pleased that you've shown your support to Southall Black Sisters, but they'd like to discuss with you directly the need for that long-term, stable funding for their vital work. that doesn't mean that they end up with 6-month gaps that they have been having to struggle to find money for. Would you be willing to meet them? They're here today.
Look, we can't have a proper debate at Mayor's question time if people try and run out their time and not let me answer the questions. It's just not possible.
Will you be willing to meet them?
Assembly Member, I think you've had the answer you're going to get. I think somewhere in there is that the Mayor is going to explore some issues and point into other funding streams. And I think that needs to be pursued. And hopefully a meeting will take place. So we're about to do it. So, Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you, Chair. And I know that the Mayor takes this issue incredibly seriously. He's been a strong advocate and a strong, clear male role model to speak to other men about, making, whether it's messages on the tube or messages that he sends out personally, the role that men have in terms of tackling male violence against women and girls. And he will know, as he's already talked about, the critical role that Southall Black Sisters play, not only in my constituency in West London, but also right across London in terms of the role that they play. Having run a charity myself in terms of supporting refugees and people who are suffering these sorts of traumas and challenges in their lives, I know how important long-term funding is. And you've given previous commitments when I asked at the last opportunity that you wanted to give long-term funding for this. And you've mentioned the DASA funding, which I understand that Southall Black Sisters have applied for, and will obviously find out in due course whether that is successful or otherwise. The challenge that is presented, and I've met with the Deputy Mayor responsible for this to discuss further on behalf of Southall Black Sisters, was that, of course, as you mentioned, there was an extension upon extension upon extension of the funding. And, of course, from a procurement point of view, you cannot continue to do that. Conversations were had with Southall Black Sisters as to what happened this financial year in terms of the funding. And my understanding is that the Deputy Mayor's office has worked with Southall Black Sisters to ensure that match funding is secured for this financial year to ensure that this critical service can continue for the full year. I understand that potential news of that will come in due course. But
Chair, you'll appreciate when there's a procurement process, I've got to be quite careful what I say in terms of that process taking place. If you were a group that was unsuccessful, I'm talking hypothetically, that was unsuccessful in getting funding, and you had a conversation, at Mayor's question time, where the decision maker was prejudging the outcome of that process, you can appreciate the issues that would cause. I don't want to politicise this like the Lib Dems have done. What I want to do is make sure we work with this great group to make sure we can support them, not just during the interim, when there could be a delay between the previous funding that's supposed to end in 2021 ending and the DASA scheme being processed. And they will know my support for buy-in for organisations like SBS and many others that are doing an incredible amount of work across our city. They reach parts of our community, women and girls, that, frankly speaking, mainstream organisations don't reach. They've also, through their work, not just saved lives, but transformed lives as well. They know my commitment, not just to them, but buy-in for groups as well. There has been this big cut in terms of money received from MIJ. I've extended year after year after year after year after year this time-limited funding, but the idea that I'd be lectured by the Lib Dems about my commitment to VAWG I find offensive, but also the impression that's trying to be created for political reasons that I'm not committed to groups like this also I find offensive.
I think, just to reiterate, I think the role that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and their teams have played in terms of working closely with Southall Black Sisters to secure additional external funding, I think is incredibly important, and look forward to seeing what might come out of that going forward.
Okay, we're moving on to the next question that we have time allocated for is protecting healthy spaces from Assembly Member Irani.
Okay, I thank the member for his question. I recently consulted on the next London plan, setting out how changes to the future planning policy framework might help to ensure London delivers the homes and growth our city needs, while also continuing to build a greener city for Londoners and improving our environment and green spaces. The current London plan has embedded an approach to development that incorporates the needs of communities and means that we have a strong foundation for refining the next plan. For example, the winner of our housing award this year, Kidbrooke Park North in Greenwich, impressed the judging panel through its thoughtful integration of family housing and the needs of children and young people into the very fabric of the development. This goes beyond simply providing play areas by creating a safe, inclusive and high-quality public realm that reflects my commitment to designing a city that works for all Londoners. My officers are now assessing the responses to the consultation alongside other evidence, and this will inform the policies of my next London plan. I fully recognise the need for the creation of more communal and social spaces in London, as they're at the heart of what makes a livable city, as well as the importance of green and open space for Londoners as our city densifies. While our next London plan will have a role to play in enabling the provision of spaces that deliver public health benefit, my other policies and interventions also help support the health and well-being of our communities. This includes initiatives such as my Healthy Streets approach, which seeks to help make London's diverse communities greener, healthier, and create more attractive places to live, work and play. That said, a balance will need to be struck in terms of how prescriptive the next London plan can be, and I've committed to providing a streamlined and focused London plan. This will require careful consideration of the impact of policies to ensure we don't hamper growth and ensure that we deliver the affordable homes that are so crucial to Londoners' health and well-being and in tackling inequality across our city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that answer. And just to highlight another concern in terms of unhealthy spaces as well that I have is the proliferation of gambling premises on high streets and town centres, particularly in areas of high deprivation. So the University of Bristol published a report in 2021 which found that 4 of the 10 local authorities in the country with the highest concentration of these outlets per capita are in London. Now, next week, I'm hosting a roundtable here at City Hall with the charity Bet No More, where they're looking to create a London action group, bringing together local authority representatives from across London to share best practice to tackle this issue. Now, they've been calling, and London Councils has been calling for more powers to crack down on premises and end the Gambling Act's aim to permit duty. What support can you give them in their quest to protect their residents from the negative impact that legislation is currently having on our communities?
Chair, can I congratulate him and commend him for his campaigning on this area. I know he's been working closely also with his friend and colleague, Dawn Butler MP, as well, on these issues as well. Look, I think, in short, I would support his campaign for the aim to permit duty to be reconsidered in gambling legislation. He's right to be lobbying for councils being given greater powers to refuse licensing applications for new betting shops, especially, as he's alluded to, where there are already high numbers in the area. I realise and I support these being matters largely for local authorities. Unfortunately, I've not got the licensing powers, but I'm more than happy to work with him and the boroughs he's got together to look at what measures and support are needed.
Thank you. And just on the other side of the equation, around healthy spaces, which you alluded to in your original answer, and the London plan. So one thing that can be done to counteract these outlets that provide public harms is by seeing what can be done to relax planning laws for those that provide positive public health benefits, such as places like community centres, libraries and gyms and leisure centres as well. What more can be done through your London plan to encourage those outlets to open in town centres and high streets?
As you were speaking, Chair, I smirked because he reminded me of Nikki Gavron in terms at this stage in the cycle. She'd get very active in terms of trying to facilitate and change the London plan. Listen, I think it's a cracking idea. In general terms, I can't obviously prejudge the draft London plan. Can I, Chair, organise for Jules Pipe to meet with the member to discuss some of the pre-thinking taking place in terms of the new London plan? I think the earlier Senator Hirani speaks to Jules Pipe and the team, the more chance of his point landing, because now's when the heavy lifting is done with those sorts of policies.
Thank you. And just to confirm, so a formal representation from the Labour group has also gone in and includes this point as well. And I should also commend the wider work of the London Assembly Health Committee, which in the 2024 report did also make the call to government to reconsider the aim to permit duty. Thank you.
Point well made, Chair. Until I was preparing for today's Mayor's Question Time, I wasn't fully on top of this. I know the issue much better now. I will still arrange for Jules Pipe to meet with him because I think it's really important he hears this as well.
Thank you very much. At this point, will the Assembly agree to suspend Standing Orders 2.9b in order to allow the remaining business on the agenda to be completed? Thank you. Let's move back. It's a question in the name of Assemblymember Small-Edwards, unlocking delays in the from the building safety regulator.
Can I thank the member for his question? The building safety regulator was created for the right reasons, and I lobbied for reforms that set it up after the tragedy of the Grenfell Tower fire. But I'm afraid to say the last government completely botched its implementation, as they've also botched housing delivery. Part of their disastrous house building legacy is creating a regulator that has made delivering new homes more difficult, slow and uncertain. This issue impacts on London more than elsewhere. We have 61% of England's high-rise buildings and 96% of all new builds are flats. The building safety regulators therefore made it harder and costlier to build flats over 6 stories and deliver critical remediation works. Leaders across the social housing, construction and development sectors have raised issues with the building safety regulators' guidance, resourcing and processes. Too many applications have taken longer than the regulator's 12-week timeline, with many rejected without explanation. Developers are right about this. The building safety regulator, despite the critical role it must play and good intentions, has not been performing. We need a regulator to work so we can deliver more good, affordable and safe housing that Londoners desperately need. With 1 in 21 children in London living in often overcrowded temporary accommodation, with all the associated impacts on mental and physical health, we cannot accept such delays to housing delivery. That's why my Deputy Member for Housing and I have been working closely with ministers who have already acknowledged these issues and begun much-needed reforms. On the 30th of June, the government announced plans to add over 100 new members of staff and a new fast-track process to bring building inspector and engineering capacity in-house. The government's also announced new leadership. I'm pleased with the appointment of the esteemed Andy Rowe and Charlie Pugsley, who will know firsthand the importance of building safety and who we know as well. My officials are working directly with them on how to improve the building safety regulator's operation in London. It will take time for these reforms to bed in. Until then, I'll keep working with MHGLG, the regulator and others to drive the delivery of good and safe housing for Londoners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that response. And in your response, you spoke a bit about the rejections that are currently being issued by the Building Safety Regulator. Currently, the Building Safety Regulator rejecting 70% of applications at Gateway 2. And as you mentioned, a lot of that focus will be in London due to the number of high-rises we have. As a result of that, do you think there's any potential role for the GLA to offer support or coordination to housing providers navigating that BSR process and to make it more efficient?
Yeah, often they're given rejections without any reason or explanation. It's just really disturbing for developers. So a number of things we're already doing now. So the Deputy for Housing is now co-chairing a joint partnership board with the Building Safety Minister, and they bring together sectors across London, including the developers he's talking about, to address some of these issues and to accelerate remediation. There is now a London remediation acceleration plan. We've got to try and make sure the building safety regulator themselves are meeting with developers, and we can facilitate that, and we are facilitating that. We've got to make sure also that any bad developer doesn't inadvertently get through in this process. So it's addressing the purpose of the BSR, but also making sure they can streamline the process.
And you mentioned, thank you for that, you mentioned in your response the appointment of Andy Rowe and Charlie Pugsley, who obviously we know as part of the GLA family. With their introduction and with the changes that the government have made, are you confident that clearer timelines and better resourcing are going to lead to better results from the Building Safety Regulator?
Well, it has to. I mean, the past has been a disaster. The BSR was set up for the best of intentions. Anybody who spent time or has spent time in Grenfell knows the importance of proper regulation in this area. But unintentionally, or it's leading to permissions not being granted, developers walking away because of viability changes, because of a variety of issues. So we want them to do their job, which is to make sure only safe builders can go through. But they've got to make decisions much, much quicker and swifter. So additional investment of more staff is important. Having expertise there that have a can-do attitude is important. But also it's really important they understand that, the only way we're going to address London's housing need is to build good quality, sometimes high density, safe homes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
We're now moving on to the next question of, in the name of Assembly Member McCartney, 20 miles speed limits.
We've done that. I think I'm taking the question that was for Leonie Cooper.
I apologise. You're going to be answering on behalf of Assembly Member Cooper.
Thanks, sir, for the question on behalf of Leonie Cooper. London is one of the world's greenest cities, but access to nature and quality green space is not shared equally across our communities, and I'm determined to change that. I launched our new Green Routes Fund in June, and I'm really encouraged with the range and number of applications we've received so far. We've had 124 applications for the first round of funding, and this is just the first of 5 rounds. The initial analysis shows a fantastic spread of projects, boroughs and community-led ideas, which is exactly what we wanted to see. This shows the huge appetite across London to take part in greening our city. This didn't happen by accident. In the run-up to launching the fund, we worked closely with communities to shape it. Every single borough is represented, and the proposals range from community gardens to tree planting, habitat restoration, community science projects, and cleaning our waterways. What's particularly exciting is the number of grassroots organisations and local residents stepping forward with projects designed not just to green their areas, but to bring people together, improve well-being and tackle health and climate inequalities. Officers are currently assessing the applications for round 1, and I'll be announcing the first batch of projects later this year.
Thank you. And Mr Mayor, will you consider using the London Nature Recovery Strategy to pilot the amalgamation of sites for nature enhancement? And then this can be used by developers to meet their biodiversity and green space requirements.
So we're currently finalising the local nature recovery strategy. And I'll take this away. I'm sure this is one of the ideas being considered by them, but let me take that away.
Thank you. And just finally, do you have a timescale as to when that strategy will be published?
I'm nervous announcing dates at Mayor's question time because you hold me to account. Can I say later this year?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
As a letter, no. I know.
At this point, Ms Mayor, can I thank you for the answers that you've given? Can I ask the Assembly to agree the motion which is... on swings and roundabouts, in terms of we come off the clock quite a lot, we're about right in terms of this. But yes, we've had a number of questions withdrawn on our part from the Assembly member. I don't think that's where we are in our process, and we've never done that before, even 25 years. So let's go back again before I was interrupted. Thank you, Mayor, for your answers to the questions today. Can I ask the Assemblies to agree that the motion which is set out on the agenda in my name, which is that the Assembly notes the answers to the questions that have been asked? I now turn to item 6. We've got petitions on the agenda. Can I ask the Assembly to agree Standing Order 3.20 relating to the receipts of petitions at Mayor's question time be suspended for the duration of the meeting to allow petitions listed in the report to be received? Can I ask Assembly Member Hall to present the petition listed on the agenda in her name?
Thank you, Chair. The background to this, obviously, is the Labour Mayor of London is responsible for the Metropolitan Police, which has repeatedly failed Kensington and Chelsea since 2016. After ending borough policing, they then closed Notting Hill Police Station, and we now learn the Met wants to close the last remaining 24/7 police counters in the borough of Kensington Police Station on the Earls Court Road. A key commitment of the new Met for London was to have at least one 24/7 front counter in each of the London's 32 boroughs to make it easier for people to report crime. Many crimes do not get reported, which leaves genuine hotspots areas undermanned, so that the police need to maintain front counters, not close them. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea is fortunate to have a number of brilliant police officers, and this is not fair on those excellent PCs and PCSOs who are already stretched. They need reinforcements, not savage cuts. So the petition reads, a petition to the Mayor of London. We, the undersigned, call on Sadiq Khan, the Police and Crime Commissioner for London, to retain the 24/7 police presence at Kensington Police Station in Earls Court Road, and there are 2,290 signatures. Thank you, Chairman.
Can I ask the Assembly to agree to refer the petition to the Mayor for a response? Okay, can we move on to item 7, GLA Group Corporate Governance Framework Agreement. Can I ask the Assembly to note the report agree to sign up to the Greater London Authority Group Framework Agreement as set out in Appendix 1 of the report, subject to its approval by the Mayor. Item 8, date of the next meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the London Assembly will be Mayor's Question Time meeting, which will take place at 10 a.m. on Thursday the 9th of October 2025 in the Chamber at City Hall. Moving on to 9, any other business? There is no urgent business requiring consideration. There will be photos with representatives of the Latin and Spanish-speaking communities, which will take place outside the Chamber as part of the Amigo month celebrations. Can I declare this meeting closed? Thank you.